Oh yeah, you gotta love that royalty-free music.
You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. So welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor. I have my co-host, Jaden, here.
Yeet.
And our producer, McKinnon. And today we have on a special guest. We have all-star soccer athlete, amazing lead guitar player, graduate of the University of Colorado, Calvin. And we're going to have him on. He's has a film degree, and we want to kind of pick his brain, figure out more about the degree itself and kind of like how he views film now. And I think it's going to be a good experience for all of us because we're just a couple regular guys who maybe pretend to know things about movie, but he actually knows stuff.
He studied it in school.
Yeah.
Paid to learn about things about
and
film.
so I'm very excited. So welcome to the podcast, Calvin.
Thank you. One of those three things are true. So,
you nutmeg me, you punk me with a soccer ball. I'm sure of it.
You can also tackle people pretty well as well.
I mean when I hate them.
Yeah,
that was a great day.
Yeah. So I think like one of the big reasons we wanted to have you on is because I think there's a lot of people who obviously love watching movies, dig the theater, love watching their shows and everything, but it's like I think there's maybe stuff you miss out on or maybe behind the scenes things that you don't know that go into filmmaking or like it being like a showrunner or like how does the audio work? How do people do lighting work? And it's just nice to I think maybe get to know more about that and kind of like the world of film and like how it's made. So we're really excited to have you on, and we have a couple questions, kind of a good little interview for you.
Yeah, I think this might open some eyes and give you some people a little bit better appreciation of what goes behind the scenes on movies. All right, so Calvin, we all know when you went to school, CU Boulder for film studies. That's not very specific as far as like when you just say film studies. Did your degree focus more on the concepts of film, like what the director was trying to convey? Or did it focus more on the technical aspects as well as like different filming techniques when you use certain shots, editing, lighting, and so on? Can you give an example of your classes or assignments, what they were like? Were you watching film while you were in school and trying to depict what those were about? And what were you like writing papers on?
Yeah, so film at CU was split into two different tracks. You had the critical track, which is the Bachelor of Arts, and you had the filmmaking, or the Bachelor of Fine Arts. So both of those focused on the two different things, but there was obvious, interplay between those two. The overlap is really there's overlap between the two. So there were a lot of critical classes that we took, but most of there are four main classes for the BFA, and they were just building blocks on top of how to learn what film is, how do we develop it, how we edit it, and then moving through more and more complex techniques for how to create film. But then also there were I took Russian film, I took Jungian film, Hollywood musicals, film in the postmodern, but we also did a lot of editing classes in digital, After Effects, those types of things. So, yeah, that would be most of what it was. I wrote a lot of papers and there were tests on the concepts, but it was a lot of making short films. From a concept of use this technique, and it wasn't as focused on the ideas. So
you helped us out. We were kind of working with this sound equipment, trying to figure out how it works better because we're just starting out, and Calvin just zipped right over and he's like, oh, I use this program already, or he was familiar with how to edit this and how to add a track here. So I mean that's obviously something that you gained from there too. Did you work with any camera equipment or anything like that as well, or?
Yeah, so CU is actually a really interesting program. I don't know if it's still the same because Kodak actually went bankrupt while I was in school. We're one of the few schools that actually works with film. We worked almost exclusively with film until halfway through junior year. So we shot on 8mm, Super 8mm, Super 16. You could do 35. So expensive. 16 was expensive because what you had to do is you had to buy the film, which was $40 a roll.
Can you explain what all those numbers mean? Is that's the size of the film using the?
Yeah,
that's
okay.
No,
that's all right.
So those are the gauges. Those are the widths. So talking about basically resolution. So when you shoot on 8mm, I actually don't remember if that's I think it refers to the width, and then the height is just implied by the fact that it's Super 8. Super 16 is 16 millimeters wide. 35 millimeters, 35 millimeters wide.
For like kind of like context, how do you know how wide an IMAX, like what do they film on?
IMAX shoots on 70 millimeters. I
Holy
wanna
crap,
say.
that's
double than
nutty, man.
What you guys were using.
I'm pretty sure it's 70. But yeah, most film was shot on 35. A lot of film is shot on Super 16, and then I don't remember the term, but then it's rephotographed on the 35 millimeter. So there's a little bit of loss of fidelity, but it's basically the same thing. It's a big cost-saving method to shoot on Super 16, but still get a lot of the quality that you get on 35 millimeter.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I think we gotta. So if you want to get a film degree, you listen to this and you get a good overview on
Yeah, you don't
kind of
have
what
to
you're
pay
getting
for
into.
school.
Yeah.
Let's go
Yeah,
to Hollywood. And
Just tune in and listen
Start
to
out.
Calvin talk about it, and you're guaranteed
You're
to
golden, dude.
graduate.
Yeah, I mean, if I can do it.
So we have another question for you.
what did you learn from your educational experience at CU that changed the way you view films now?
So I really struggled with seeing things as they are. My biggest thing was everything means something. Everything has symbolism. There's a purpose behind everything. Like basically growing up as a Christian, there's purpose, there's meaning, there has to be for everything. So it was really hard for me to just see things and see them for their existence. So I struggled with this all the way up to my senior year. I was pitching my senior thesis film to my professor, and I was it just sounds so stupid and pretentious now. I was talking about how I wanted to incorporate all of this imagery of leaves and water, and rebirth and new life, and my teacher just cut me off right there. She's like, Calvin, just sometimes a leaf, it's just a fucking leaf. And yeah, so
That's
just
good
imagine, like Pippi Longstocking as a 15-year-old Italian woman being like, you should stop talking now. Like that was
That's what your teacher
that's
was
what
like?
my teacher looked like. Yeah, like basically if Morticia like decided to wear knee-high socks. And like, yeah, she had great style some days, and then some days she showed up and like, are you a student?
Okay, so then, so I think another question we have is there like a scene or a movie you used to like really love, and after you went to school, you're like, oh my god, this is bad. Like it like cringed you up. You're just like, oh god, how did I used to think this was cool?
Oh yeah, like basically my entire childhood. That
I like movies from my childhood.
yeah,
but-
I like watch them and like, wow, I was so stupid as a kid. Like there's just like so many things. But so really what got me into film was Avatar. I was like so drawn up into this emotion. The music was fantastic. The colors, the
Pocahontas.
Yeah, sure. Pocahontas. But now it was like every year, like through school, like, oh yeah, Avatar was the reason I got into filmmaking. People look at me and like, not Antonioni. You're not here because of Jean-Luc Godard. And I was like,
I think you mispronounced it. It's Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the USS Enterprise.
Godard.
I know.
Godard is like
I'm being stupid.
yeah. So
So-
every year I just hated that was my inspiration more and more because Avatar is a god awful movie.
So, well, how do you feel about all the new ones coming out? Because there's supposed to be like 4.
There's
yeah.
4 more coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Are you going to go to film school 4 more times every time
yeah,
one of these
honestly,
comes out?
yeah, I couldn't be more excited to see the same movie 4 more times.
Hey, dude, Avatar 2, first movie ever filmed like 90% underwater. James Cameron's a big fan of that stuff.
and I am
Dude,
just
that dude-
so excited to see what kind of story.
Oh,
out
I'm
of
sure
that.
it'll be great.
I mean, the technology that came out is so cool, but like, it's the same thing with George Lucas. Like, you're not good at writing scripts. Like, just like Harrison Ford. Like, you can write it, George, but you can't fucking say it.
Yeah.
Well, so does it matter to you at all that, just on the topic of Avatar, I don't think most people, when it came out, they weren't seeing it for the story so much as the visual spectacle, because so many of the effects were brand new at the time. So I don't think it's quite I don't think it's absurd for that to spark your interest in movies, because that movie was, it was an incredible achievement when it came out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing is like the real artists within those films are the ones in the visual effects, the ones in the sound design that are creating things basically like the people who are mixing together sounds to create the animal noises like that's amazing. That's incredible. But you can do all of that
With a
Film-
movie that has a good script.
Yeah, see, the thing is that film is a language. Film itself is the language. It doesn't need all of this garbage on top of it in order to. And this is why I'm so excited to talk about Under the Skin because it only talks through images. You can watch
just
the
to
entire
real quick plug
film.
that. This is not just an interview of Calvin, which as fun as that is. We are also going to talk about a
2 films.
an interesting movie called Under the Skin.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Spoilers. We're talking about.
Yeah.
Under
So
the
by the
Skin.
way, I mean it's going to be in the thumbnail. You're going to see it. You're going to know. But this is a multi-part episode. So we're just starting out, learn more about kind of Calvin and his journey and
Yeah,
what
just so
else
you
to
don't think
learn.
I'm some pretentious asshole who doesn't know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. I have
Yeah.
4 years of degree that say I know something.
But yeah, but we are also going to talk about Under the Skin, which is I think worth watching. Very interesting. But we'll get more into that later. But yeah.
Just one quick pick about Avatar. Unobtainium is the laziest name.
No,
I've
it's a
ever heard
real
of.
term. It's actually I looked this up and it's dumb that they still used it, but it is a geological or archaeological. I don't know what.
Well,
but
the
they used it
geologist who
for-
came up with that name was an idiot.
Yeah,
so-
well, they're also not interested in like narrative, so that's why they named it that way. But the fact that someone was like, "Oh, that's so cool! It sounds so mysterious," like
It's
and not.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like dude, like you could be in first grade. Like I'm pretty sure I came up with unobtainium when I found a nice
Yeah, or a
sparkly
planet
rock.
called Pandora, like very original.
Yeah.
name.
Oh my God. Like, yeah. Let's hop on the Carl Jung train and just throw some more archetypes at this whole damn planet. Make it sound like it's deeper and more interesting than it really is.
Yeah, the Tree of Souls.
Yeah. Oh, just.
But
Gosh,
yeah, visually awesome. But
Yeah. So
definitely.
yeah. So I'd love to stop talking about Avatar now because I've said everything I need to
Sounds
about
good
that.
to me. So rip the Band-Aid off, and move on.
All right, and the next question I have is, what was your favorite class while you were in film school?
You know, it's really tough to say what my favorite class was because so on the theory track, the biggest thing that made the classes interesting were the professors. Which professor you had a huge impact on how much I enjoyed the class because I had like my Russian film class might have been one of my favorites because the professor just was so enamored. There was just so much life and sense of wonder in all of these films. Like, did you see all of these visual motifs, how they correlate back to the main plot of the film? And it was just an amazing way of looking at things. And it makes everything, things that just are. There is deeper meaning to some things, but what they are is still beautiful. And so there was that, but what was cool was the main track with the 4 main classes. Basically, once you started, if you just did them in a row, you were with the same core 20, 30 other students. So we all got to know each other. We would be in other films. It was really cool to get to see. And like if I were more outgoing now, then like I am now, I would have made some really great friendships. But I was, a bit of a dick back in college and like, yeah. No, and it was really hard for me to understand that you can't be dry and sarcastic when there's nobody around you to know that you're not being an asshole.
Yeah,
I
no, I
gotta
get
put that
that.
relationship up first. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone just thought I was an asshole.
So getting cut you off, but getting back to like Russian films. So like, that's obviously I think most people think of films and movies and shows and stuff it's very Western. It's very like L.A. It's very Hollywood type thing.
I learned almost none of that.
So, but like, what would do you think that like Russian films have a different tone, or are they filmed
Oh.
completely differently? Like is it comparing apple to oranges to look at like a mainstream Hollywood movie compared to a Russian film? Like,
Completely. That was the biggest surprise was, I get to go to film school. We're going to watch we're gonna watch like Star Wars and Jaws and like you know,
Jaws,
like
yeah.
like oh Avatar, what could have been the spiritual
They
predecessor
taught
to
you to
Avatar?
hate that movie.
This dude
Yeah.
secretly loves Avatar.
Yeah, exactly.
bringing it
Yeah,
up.
that's why it appears in my dreams all the time. I just don't call them dreams; they're more like nightmares. But it's such an undoing of what you think film is, because what film history really was very different. What we see in Hollywood is a snippet. It's about 10%, I'd say, of what film actually is and what it can be. There are so many ways to express ideas through film that you could see every movie that goes through AMC and United Artists in a year and not have a fucking clue what film is.
I'm so glad we had you on. You sound exactly as pretentious as I was hoping. So,
Yeah,
so
we
thank
need
you
it.
so
But
much.
but that's like the thing is like it's like saying like you know, I've been to Mexico, I know uno mas, like yeah, like I know Spanish.
El Tocino.
Yeah.
Speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have a sense of it. And the thing is it's not it's what you're shown. You're basically given a watered down product. Like take all of the coffee in the supermarket. It's just burnt to shit because it's cheaper to make that way. If you want good coffee, it's fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And the same thing with film. It's not necessarily that these films are more enjoyable. It's that they express human experience and human emotions differently.
I think that's
than-
super true, because I think the movie we're going to talk about, Under the Skin, is like a really unique way to tell a story through film, which is it's not a mainstream film in any way,
No.
but it is a unique way to tell a story, which I think people get like kind of the same kind of thing over and over again. Like you get this dialogue to tell you what's going on, you get these certain shots to tell you what's going on, and Under the Skin is nothing like that. It's completely different way to tell a story, you know, via film.
Yeah.
And so I totally get what you're saying. It's like you kind of get like a small amount of what you could be experiencing
Yeah.
with like a mainstream movie.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we like to call it, as in, like, this is one of the few things I can say we, because I'm actually a part of, like, I understand what it's saying. It's a language because it can say things that don't need words. It's a way of communicating. Like, if we just have, like, because you could think of it like this. A movie is a collection of still images put together. So all you have is one image set next to the next, and because it looks continuous, like it's continuous action, it's happening. But if you cut out several of those images in between, like say you take an orange, and then you show the same orange 10 seconds later and it's been smashed, you understand that something happened to that orange within those 10 seconds. It's communicating something happened between there without actually showing it. So another way of, I mean, we could get into how some of those things make sense, like how they work. The easiest one is match on action. So when you cut something, let's say it's in a certain shape, like the classic example is the bone being thrown up in space. What is it? Space Odyssey.
2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah. I'm not a great film student, by the way.
Dude, that's like a classic. I referenced
it's
that
like
Yeah.
actually like in an
69?
episode
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when the bone gets thrown up and then it slowly becomes the spaceship, what it's implying is how technology changed. This was the first tool that became this, because it's
So
the
it's not
same.
actually a bone transforming into a spaceship.
It literally is in a figurative way.
Wait.
That was.
That
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
make any fucking sense, Calvin.
That was a little.
Did you
I
just-
want to know if this bone is magical
I
or
really-
not.
It can't literally, figuratively.
Yeah, I put together like, oh, literally was the wrong word. I used literally in its new American sense.
I mean,
of
it
where
does.
means-
It does
it
do
means
that.
figuratively.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Yeah.
the funniest thing.
It literally does.
It literally figuratively
So,
does.
so yeah, obviously, colloquially, we use literally as figuratively. So, literally is it's figuratively become.
Oh man, that's the greatest
spaceship.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So I wouldn't mind if we cut that out, but
No. I love that one.
That's staying.
I
sir.
think
that is staying.
McKinnon has the next question. I think we covered that. I think
yeah, I think it's good to humanize me, anyways.
Yeah,
Realize,
no, that was
I'm
great,
an
Calvin.
asshole with
That was
redeeming
awesome.
traits.
So I was curious if you have any like pet peeves with movies. One of the things that drives my wife crazy is when we're watching a movie and I pause it at the climax of the movie and I'm like, gosh, I hate when movie makers do this or whatever. I was just curious if maybe after you've gone through all this school, if you realize, man, I didn't hate that before, but now that I've seen it in a bunch of movies, I hate it when I see this in a
Oh
movie.
yeah. It's mostly just movies in general.
I just hate the thing that I study.
Is
Yeah.
it like the thing about how like Hollywood movies are different than like Russia movies?
It's that
That
it's
sort of
that
thing.
all Hollywood movies are the exact same. They all follow the same plot structure.
The formula, right?
Yeah, it's the same. I can't remember if it's Socratic or Platonic narrative structure of.
I think it's Socratic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I love you, McKenna.
I would. Yeah, maybe we should add like a footnote. On
You
It's all right, they
you
can
expect
Google
way too
shit.
much of us.
yeah. Well, I mean, you're over here saying like like go yeah. Trust you.
That's things we don't know. We're trying to sound smart for you. Like we're trying to impress you. Dude.
I'm pretty sure that literally you don't have to do that.
Are you being literal?
So the
I'm
big
being
thing
figurative,
I
but-
know is like the hero's journey, and I know that's like there's like kind of like offshoots from that. But as
Yeah.
far as like
Mhm.
kind of filmmaking structure, that's the big one I know. It's like, oh, you have your hero who gets like established, and then he goes through like a tough thing,
Yeah.
and then
the
it has him
descent
come
into
back,
the
and,
underworld.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
And then
I know
22
that's- yeah.
movies later, he lifts Thor's hammer, and it's the happiest moment of your life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
f-
exactly.
for me, the thing I complain to my wife a lot about is a serious movie with the comedic relief character. Who, to me, the serious movie doesn't need a funny character most of the time, and when he has to make a joke, it halts all the momentum in the scene. And it drives me nuts. That's something that
Thanks for dogging the Marvel.
drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just curious if there's something
love
like
it.
that for
So,
you.
but the other thing the thing I think that I hate the most about Hollywood film is it infantilizes every aspect of narrative. Like, you're so dumb you couldn't possibly understand what's happening in the story, so we have to tell you exactly what happened.
That is annoying.
Yeah, anytime someone says, "Oh, of course," like I'll walk out the room. like I'm sorry, like if I was paying attention to this whole movie, like I walked through the kitchen while my sister was watching Harry Potter today, and it was like he was like, "Oh, of course, Phoenix tears have healing properties." I'm like, yeah, like that's
So-
why he said it in the beginning of the film.
Would
were
you-
paying
Harry
attention.
Potter, dude.
Would
Yeah.
you say that like movies that hold your hand too much are like a pet peeve then?
Yeah, which is all of them.
Which is
Yeah.
why I like the
Yeah.
movies that you picked this week.
Yeah,
by the way.
exactly. They don't hold your hand. They're also not going to give you everything.
It is much like solving a puzzle immediately as you
Mhm.
start watching the movie, which is very
Yeah.
interesting, and it gets you, like, honestly, like, not my style of movies that I would typically watch. The very beginning of them are very slow and
Mm.
seems uninteresting to me, and then all of a sudden you start like, what the fuck is going on here? And that just intrigues me so much, and
Yeah.
like I love the aspect
Ooh,
of them.
yeah, like anything like Ari Aster is like my current, like I can't wait to see what he does more. Ari Aster is the one that did Hereditary and Midsommar.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
okay.
I would love to talk about
Oh, yeah.
Hereditary on this podcast. sometime.
I've not
Absolutely.
seen Hereditary, but I've seen Midsommar.
It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
movies.
His
It's so good.
pacing is so unique. Where he puts tension points and how he resolves his climaxes are so interesting in a mainstream type setting. Like the fact that Midsommar and Hereditary got the release that they did says a lot about how talented he is in terms of narrative,
Yeah.
but it's also the detail that he pays attention to, much like Robert Eggers in The Lighthouse, which is not as entertaining.
So you talked about like when you see these things in movies, you're like, oh, it makes me want to walk out. Can you think of when was the last time? Have you walked out of a theater?
No, not out of the theater because I paid money.
Smart,
Yeah,
smart
I
man,
get-
smart
yeah,
man,
like, and I'm
smart
not-
man.
I'm
A
not,
true
like-
American, like
Yeah.
I did this. I'm gonna stick through it. Like
Yeah.
it's
I
my
paid for it.
goddamn money.
I'm
I'm
not
gonna
I
go
using
through it.
my
researched
money,
this
yeah.
movie. Like I went to it with my wife, so like it'd be weird if I left by myself, anyways.
Can you
So-
think of was the last
have
movie
done that
like
with my
you?
ex-girlfriend.
The last movie you like turned off. That you're like,
No,
ugh,
I
no.
know exactly what it was. I was really like, I wanted to find a new like sci-fi type fantasy show after I finished watching The Good Place that kind of fit that tone or whatever. I eventually settled on Legion. And
X-Men show that was on
Yeah.
FX, right?
yeah, and it's not good, but it's interesting. It's fun. There's a lot of weird shit happening, and then it got to like the second or last episode, and there was like, and he was explaining like the big bad guy. It's like, oh, it's Farouk, and he was like, oh, of course Farouk,
And
I
then
was
it
like,
just-
and I was like, wow, I'm just so uninterested in the rest of like. You have not explained anything for 8 episodes. Why do you need to be like, oh my God, this dark, slightly xenophobic name has, involved so much intrigue? Like, you could have just said it's Farouk and he could have just left it at that. It didn't need to be like, oh my God, our audience is 10-year-olds and they don't understand that this name is cool and bad. And like, even though like we already implied that he's, a insanely powerful parasitic mutant. It's just
Well, I don't think we give this show any more time on our podcast. I think
I'm
Calvin's
not.
given a glowing enough review that
Yeah.
we can move on.
yeah.
from
I'm
that.
not kidding.
Don't watch Legion, is what I've gathered.
I
so.
mean, it's I'm sure it gets better. It's just like those things turn me off so much because if you're gonna set the tone like that, then
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I'm
to
sure
me.
it gets better. Is a very positive way to look at a bad show.
yeah.
So my last question for you was really basic question. Do you have a favorite movie scene, or sometimes that's difficult for people if you have a top 2 or 3 movie scenes?
So
Bless you.
I'll say my favorite scene. Because I can't think of too many anyways. My favorite scene is, so one of my favorite movies is The Fountain, 2007 with Hugh Jackman, Darren Aronofsky, one of my favorite directors. And The Fountain has a special place in my heart. I've rewatched it recently, and I don't really like it as much, but there's just an amazing amount of religious symbology, a lot of different motifs, how he lights everything. It's just so much going on in the film. It's really, really interesting to pick apart. But there's this one scene where it's this confluence of past and present and future, and Hugh Jackman is breaking down because he's seeing visions of his dead wife who he's trying to resurrect, and he just screams at the camera, what do you want from me? What do you want? And it almost makes me cry every single time because it's just such an existential crisis for someone who's gained immortality and still hasn't figured anything out and still feels like he doesn't know what to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very good description, Calvin.
Yeah, I want to watch the movie now.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
too,
Oh,
very
it's
badly,
it's
actually,
it's
yeah.
wonderful. Don't listen to Nathan.
Nathan, who no one knows except for us four at
Yeah,
this
but
table.
you laugh and it implies like, yeah, we know exactly who Nathan is.
Well, that was awesome. Again, it's just cool to get more insight on just something I don't know anything about. Like, I'm going to school for health and exercise science. I don't know.
I mean, that's close.
Yeah,
That's close enough.
Very close, yeah.
they're almost on the same path.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know any of this stuff, and so it's cool to like hear about things that I'm not learning about. And McKinnon hasn't learned about it. Jaden hasn't learned about it. Like we're just guys who like watching movies, so it's like really cool to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I have an engineering degree, which is pretty much the same thing, right?
I'm sure yours has more market value than mine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely.
I don't have a degree for anyone who's
But yeah,
wondering.
no, I think that's
I
awesome.
also
and-
think that has more market value than
Yeah, I mean, sure make more money off my no degree than you do off your film degree. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am here, right?
yeah,
This is my big break.
yeah,
10
we're
years
hoping
in the
that you will
making.
actually make us money. Is the plan here? So.
You guys don't want to know how much we're paying him to be here.
It's undercooked pizza.
Dude, you're dogging on my stove again. Okay, so this dude won't even shut up about his like sourdough that
He
he
makes
makes
good
by
bread.
scratch, like dude, and he's like he comes after
Captain
me over
Breadbeard?
after my freaking stove, man. It does its job. It's okay.
I'm pretty sure like they already think I'm a pretentious asshole
Get the
enough. We don't
fuck
need
out
to
the
be like,
thing.
oh yeah, he bakes his own bread too.
Man. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you just letting us like kind of pick your brain and like
I
you
mean,
know and I
I mean,
want
Biden
to
has-
go on and on about
Yeah.
it, but I really want to talk about the next film that we have coming up, and like we mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about Under the Skin.
2013.
2013 was probably the British release, and then 2014.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah,
want
'cause
to make
I
sure
had two different answers.
because
on the internet as
I
well,
had
yeah.
2013 on my notes, and then I scribbled it out and wrote 2014,
Yeah.
and then I looked it up again, and I scribbled out 2014 and put down 2013 again.
Thanks
Yeah.
for clarifying that, Calvin.
So that's pretty normal. You'll have like a domestic release and an international release not being at the same time. I mean, if
And the
you
reason
see-
for that
Oh,
is
yeah,
it's filmed in Scotland, so it's like that's why I'm assuming that's why I got a European release
no,
at a different
it's
date.
Scotland
that's
also
that's the
looks
same thing with
beautiful.
like any product. Like look at video game releases, movie releases. You start domestically because that's your target audience, and then you're looking for
Oh, okay.
a wider international one. So different countries usually get it at a different time.
Mhm.
Film is just this is the international release.
And so
But
this
yeah,
is
well, yeah, and also I wanted to note that this was by Jonathan Glazer, who also did 2004's Birth.
I had notes about that. I didn't like dive too much into that movie, but I watched the trailer for it, and so it's Nicole Kidman is in it.
Oh yeah,
So that and it's like about a boy, or it's
Yeah.
it's about a boy. Nicole Kidman is widowed, and later on in the movie, her
no, from the beginning. So in the
Yeah.
beginning, so I was actually hoping no
If
one
you know
had
more about it,
Yeah,
then-
I actually saw this in school. I was hoping no one else had even heard of it because like so it'd be like yeah, like I was
I
speechless
have
too.
not heard of it. So
But
I'd like to know.
2000, yeah, so what Birth was the guy dies at the beginning, and then he's reincarnated into like an 8-year-old boy. I don't remember the age, but you don't really know because it's like within. I can't remember if it took 8 years or if he just like died and was reincarnated as an 8-year-old son. But there's a really beautiful scene at the beginning where he dies. He collapses under this bridge, and it's an arch bridge, and everything else around it is black. So it looks like he curls up into a fetal position, like in a womb. And then the next shot is a baby being birthed and crying. Match on action there, or synchronicity.
that's why we pay you the big bucks to come on here. And,
Yeah,
and
so
tell us
through-
how
yeah.
beautiful film is.
Yeah, through the language of film, it is telling you that he was rebirthed from that.
Yeah, that's super cool. And
Is that like reincarnation? Is that,
yeah, I just
Yeah.
thought it was neat that like because I was looking kind of through his like IMDb page. So I do a little
Yeah.
research for this, and
Yeah.
he did a lot of like shorts before this. But then
Yeah,
I
he
saw
mostly
like
does commercials. It looks like now.
yeah,
like,
and I saw like his first
That's
feature length
weird.
film
That's
is
odd.
this Birth movie, which actually looks super interesting. I was like,
Oh.
oh, I should check that out.
absolutely.
But just to give a little stats on the movie, and this movie is not made to be like a box office like.
It was a box office failure.
Yeah, I mean,
by, like,
okay,
5
so
million.
this movie had a budget of 13.3 million. It made 7 million like worldwide. It was, but again, this is not the kind of like we're talking about. This is not a mainstream movie that you kind of everyone gets behind, and it didn't get any like publicity. It didn't have like a lot
Yeah,
of marketing, like
which is crazy considering its only character is Scarlett Johansson.
yeah, who's like
Literally
who
2 years
is
before this
huge.
movie was starring in the Avengers.
Yeah,
So-
like
Yeah,
this
well-
is not like her first role. Like she was
Yeah.
serious actress before this, and this movie like almost no one heard of it.
Yeah.
But again, this is not a movie that you don't make it because you're like, oh, I'm trying to cash in as like a director or an actor or something. Like this is kind of
Yeah.
like this is a movie you make because like you're passionate about it. And from
Mm-hmm.
what I understand, this took like it spent like 10 years in production, like from when it was written to when it was finally filmed.
Probably not 10 years of production, but it was 10 years after 2000 because I think he does, he did a lot of commercial work in between there. I don't know. I want to say Principal started in, what was it, like 2011?
I just know there was like from when it was written to like when it was filmed, there was like a good amount of time in between.
Yeah, and that's pretty normal. Like, I think that James Cameron actually had Avatar as a script for like 15 years.
You know so
20
much
years.
about this movie.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, like, I was interested in it before I realized it was garbage, so I know some things about it. So,
More than anyone I've ever met. So.
But yeah, so this is this is not a film you go to, or it didn't get made to make money, so it's something is a passion project for someone.
I think it's like you said last week with Mortal Kombat, how you don't go to see that movie to have an experience. You're just going to see the movie because it's a video game movie and it's got a bunch of action. This is a movie that you go to have an experience, I think.
For sure.
well, and so that's one thing I think about film in general. Like, I think you go to both of those for experiences, but like you go to Mortal Kombat more for its simplistic, this is a, pop cultural, archetype.
It's
that
a
we can
very
all-
visceral upfront, like you know what you're getting into. This
Yeah,
Under the Skin is not like that.
Yeah, I like this video game, and I know it's garbage. I'm gonna go watch it and make fun of it, but I'm also gonna see it just because I like we went and saw the Monster Hunter movie a few months ago. You know, just because it was.
Why? Oh my
That's-
god, that looks so bad.
It was like it had Rathalos as like the big bad guy at the end. Like, it's a tier 2 monster. Like, you're not even halfway through the game, you're fighting Rathalos. It's not a world beater. Don't laugh at me. Monster Hunter is.
It's a good
I
game.
mean,
Dude, Calvin is
seeing
actually
him.
super serious about his Monster
Yeah.
Hunter. Yeah, so I guess like kind of the thing I wanted to get into first is like just the opening of the movie is like I
it's pretty weird.
so I kind of have this opinion now as
Yeah.
if I wanted to become a artsy film festival director, all I have to do is have a creepy score to start it out,
I love that score.
and then have no dialogue for ever.
Yep.
Which again, the score is awesome, and I think the thing I like the most about the score is it's like, for the majority of the movie, it's like really subtle. It's like a really kind of like a reverberating.
Minimalistic is what it's called.
Yeah, it's like a reverberating note for like a long time.
That
and then
drone.
and then sometimes you get like spikes when like something happens.
Well, probably my favorite part about that movie is the scores when she is pursuing and hunting or whatever.
Oh, well, hold on. Before we get more into that, I want to hear what Jaden thinks of the movie. So, and this is not meant to be a criticism or anything, but I think of all of us, probably Jaden is like the more into like mainstream movies. Like you probably watch more of them than I do, and and so I want to know, what was your take on this movie that is like not something you would typically watch?
So yeah, it's definitely not something I would typically watch or go to see or anything like that, because I would see a preview on this movie and I'd be like, oh, well, that looks fucking boring as fuck.
I mean, what do you mean? It's Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, okay,
I-
but like as soon as I find out that she's naked in this movie, obviously I'm gonna see it.
and somehow it was a financial failure.
Yeah, which is crazy because I'll watch that movie 1,000 times, at least parts of it.
Somehow.
She's got just a rockin' body, dude. So this movie starts out. It seems to be they're genetically making a creature of some kind or a human. It starts off small circles. It turns into an eyeball. Dude on a bike, very vague character. Don't really get to find out too much about him. Seems like a dickhead. Seems to be running Scarlett Johansson, who is made by this guy. It seems to be. She steals some clothes from some lady that he kidnaps. She finds the ant. Finds her first contact to human life. So then Scarlett Johansson goes out and she gets this van from this guy, and her objective, it seems, is to lure dudes into her van like a creepy guy with candy at a playground. So that's her
And
purpose.
we all know what the candy is.
Yeah, it's her vagina, and maybe other parts of her body as well.
So subtle.
But so she goes out and so she's studying. Actually, before she goes out and starts luring dudes in, she's studying. She goes out to like a mall or a shopping center of some kind, and is watching people and studying them and their reactions. And she starts noticing people's infatuation with physical beauty or physical attraction, and she realizes that's how she can get dudes into her van. That's why she starts putting on makeup and stuff like that. And so she ends up tricking the guy after a couple attempts into her van. She takes him back to her house, which seems to have some kind of liquid void in it where she uses it to harvest everything but their skin. So she lures them in. She somehow walks on the water like Jesus. And then they go in there, and they end up being basically disintegrated. And then their meat products are on a conveyor belt in some red light. It's pretty weird. So as this is going on, Scarlett Johansson encounters a disformed human. He's a guy, and he's obviously never had like a girlfriend or anything like that. And she starts asking about that, and starts to feel like you can see that she's starting to feel emotion. She's starting to feel sorry for this guy. So she's like, "Yo, let's go back and bang or whatever." And he's like, "All right," but he's scared. He's nervous, and like going through as he is starting to go down into the void to be harvested. It seems that she stops him, and then she regrets what she's doing because she feels bad for this person. So she lets him go. And she starts realizing like maybe that there's more of a purpose than what to her life than what she's doing, is what I would assume. So this form dude goes on, motorcycle guy ends up finding him and killing him or whatever. He puts him in the back of a trunk. I assume he's dead. Scarlett Johansson is going on trying to figure out what the fuck she's doing or who she is or what she is. She goes to this diner, she tries to eat cake, doesn't work out. I don't think she has like innards. All right, so pretty sure she can't eat. So she freaks out. She bails. She starts running like away. She ends up getting on a bus. A gentleman offers to help her. Offers to have her stay at his place. Which me innuendos is like, okay, this dude wants a banger. But he ends up being like really nice. Has his own room, personal heater, and all that stuff. It's cool. But so Scarlett Johansson ends up discovering like her body and like trying to realize that she's physically attractive and all these things. She's looking at herself in the mirror, and so she goes to try and bang this dude and realizes that she does not have a vagina, which is not exactly a fact. It's what I believe happens in the scene. So then she runs into the woods. She meets a dude who very sketchy. In the beginning, he says, "Watch your step." So she's running in the woods or whatever, and the guy's a creep. She ends up running into some trouble. But along the way, we end up figuring out what's really going on in this movie. I don't want to spoil the ending here. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it's a basic overview of the movie, maybe a bit more than basic. But I mean, it's pretty fucking weird. I'm not gonna lie, it's a super, super fucking weird movie. Super awesome to see Scarlett Johansson's boobs. So.
I had something I wanted to say about the movie real quick. There were two movies that we had as homework to watch. And
I wouldn't call them homework.
I would call them homework.
I would call them learning experiences.
Of course you would, Professor Calvin.
Anyways, this one, of the two of them, the first one I watched, I had a very strong opinion of. When I watched this one, it was really difficult for me to interpret the stuff that the movie maker was trying to show me. And it was really difficult for this movie to resonate with me. I struggled a lot, and I spent a lot of time taking notes to try to figure out what this movie was trying to tell me. And I was thinking a lot about art. And when someone sees a painting, some people will look at a painting and have a very, very strong response to it. Some people will look at the same painting and keep walking. They don't care. And it really felt like this movie, this was art. Both the movies we had to watch were art. And I've never felt that way watching a movie, because I've never watched Guardians of the Galaxy and thought, wow, this is art. It's a good movie, but it's not trying to make me feel... It's not trying to make me feel something.
You don't cry during Guardians of the Galaxy? I cry every time I watch a movie.
I didn't cry. An anthropomorphic tree that dances.
We are Groot.
But
bawl my eyes out, dude.
But you get what I mean. Like, these movies are trying to make you feel something. It was like looking at a painting. And Under the Skin in particular was really difficult for me, because I just couldn't bridge that gap. I couldn't figure it out.
So you saying that... I didn't think about this till you mentioned it, but your interpretation of seeing it as a painting, which is one thing that's great about that movie, is it doesn't have a whole lot of conclusions. Like, it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on, so it's your own interpretation, which is exactly like a painting, which makes the movie very artful.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's up to interpretation, whereas something like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's not
exactly what's going on.
It's not up to interpretation. They hit you over the head with it.
If you missed it, then you needed an "of course" line at the end to let it know that you're too stupid to be watching this movie.
It's like we were saying about Hollywood movies, where if you sit through the movie, you know exactly what they're trying to tell you. Yeah. There's no mystery.
This one you have to pay attention to, and so one thing I would say is from a personal experience, from a lot of classmates' experiences. We made films with a specific intention in mind. But what's great about art is that it has so much to do with the interplay between creator in work and viewer in work. There's a lot of voyeur critical theory about what film really is, like whose eye is really seeing what and what the subject is. And I love that is my experience when going to film. You are now learning a new language and realizing that you've been watching movies your whole life, but you have not understood how they actually communicate with you, because it's just dialogue. It's just dialogue, music, and editing. Like every 3 seconds. That's another thing. We don't need to get more on my pet peeves, but like, but yeah, that is exactly the thing. It's like, if you know the language of film, this is actually a pretty simple film to piece together about what's going on. I'd really want to know what you guys think, if there's a central message to this, what the main point of it is. I want to know what y'all's is.
There's no central message to this movie at all. I don't think there's a point. I do not think that this movie means anything, but I think it's great, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I liked it.
Okay, well, I disagree with that.
That's fine. Yeah,
but so I think the point of this movie is, I don't want to call it, I think it's like akin to like a coming of age story, where like you're kind of figuring out who you are. It's like you kind of start out as one way and you the character kind of grows and changes, because you have a Scarlett Johansson's character starts out one way, like this kind of very cold, heartless kind of observer, sometimes like seductress who's like doing this for some kind of purpose. You don't really know what that is, but it's like this character kind of completely transforms. It's like early on in the movie, she is like has a lot of dialogue and she's talking to a lot of people, and she's like very kind of outgoing. It seems like she's in the van and she's like pulling over to like roll down her window to talk to people. She like that's like a big part of like the beginning of her character, I think. And then at the end of the movie, she has like almost no dialogue. Like she barely talks at the end of the movie.
Yep.
And I think that again, I don't want to say it's a coming of age because it's not like a kid growing up or anything, but I think it's more of a movie about like transformation. Like she's completely different at the end of the movie than she is at the beginning, and it takes almost no dialogue to communicate that. It's almost all visual. It's like you were talking about, like there's like a cake scene and there's like a scene where like a sex scene where she's like learning more about herself, and I just think there's a lot of stuff that takes place that, like you said, it's not like a oh there it is scene like someone explaining it to you. It's like you have to watch it and be like, oh, like she's changing, and it's like it's just through like kind of visually seeing the movie. It's not told to you. It's you have to be watching it to see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong there. I mean, but I don't see like, so when you say it's like a coming of age thing, I just don't see how like a human being can relate to that kind of aspect.
I mean, I get what you're saying, where it doesn't have like a
And
point.
I'm not saying that you're wrong or anything like that. I just don't think that like I just don't see like the specifics in there like being very relatable to like a person.
Well, so what I would say is it's actually. So I overall don't think there is a point to it. What I think it is a character study, and I think it is you watching this character changing.
For sure.
So that first scene is actually her being birthed. You start with that pinhole light. It's you hear that ga 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 da da da. Ba, ba,
I always
ba.
thought that was her. That's like her learning to speak, right?
It's
Yeah.
her.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's her starting to understand the language because she's an alien and she's adopting that skin. So she is literally being birthed. So that's why you start getting those concentric circles around each other, and then you start seeing from the eye. You're literally seeing from her perspective what it's like being inside of that skin.
I'm so glad you're explaining this to me because like I said, it all went over my head. And I was like, I'm gonna have to watch this again.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you explained to me that was a birth scene, and that makes total sense now that you say that.
Yeah, lots of experience seeing weirder shit than that.
I'm sure that like the birth scene is something really common. I'm sure, right?
It depends. So a lot of film loves to focus on Jungian psychology and archetypes.
Sure.
And there is so much subtext with like if we got into the Lighthouse, I don't doubt tonight, but the Lighthouse is so fucking dense with Jungian archetypes, and it's actually another like the Jung class that I took was actually where we saw Glazer's birth. There's a lot of subtext in that too, but so what I think is happening is it's relatable on this perspective of someone going through a change and looking at themselves differently. That part can be relatable. I don't think it's necessarily the point. It's just like, look, there's a lot of imagery with mirrors. Mirrors are a big part of this film. Her looking at in the rear view mirror, her looking, when she comes to her change of heart, she's staring in the mirror
that's
at the bottom
like
of
the
the stairs.
biggest part. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that one. That shot on film, you get a lot wider range of blacks on film than you do on video, so you can get more of that gradient.
So pretentious, dude.
It's different.
This isn't black enough for
It's
me.
literally no, it is. What happens is there's a certain point, it just turns black, and then that's just all there is. There's none of these nice shades of gray that film can pick up.
So you talked about like the lights at the beginning and to become concentric circles. When I was watching it, I thought so the light that's at the beginning, it gets like brighter and brighter and almost takes up the whole screen at one point. And I thought like I was like, that's got to be like kind of a reference to like UFOs, and kind of to me that cemented to me more that she was an alien. Because when people talk about like, oh, I was abducted, like a bright light shone up over me. So like that's what I saw when I watched it, which I mean, I don't know if that's what was intended, but I was like, oh, like, and then after that is when it kind of changes into the concentric lights, and then it becomes like more of an eyeball.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, oh, like, I thought it was kind of more to signal you that like, oh, she's like an alien because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, like UFOs. Everyone talks about, oh, the bright light on me.
Yeah, and that's so there's a lot of things that aren't when you make a film. There are some things that are just representative, or like the eyeball, or they are just an image that kind of reinforces that. So the circles being UFO, they're always circular, oblong, that type of thing. It's not maybe necessarily meant to signify that it's a UFO, but that it follows along with the
It's like-
paradigm of UFO
yeah.
being that type of.
It's like you said, like the
object.
interaction between like the director interacts with like what he's filming, and then the viewer interacts with the film. And so like,
Mhm.
yeah, so I probably took away something different than what all you guys did.
Yeah,
but, like
you-
that's what I
you're
saw.
probably
I was
over
like,
here,
oh, that's
like-
neat, like that he
yeah,
did that. But
yeah, like
that
the
might not
leaf
have been.
dripping water, salvation.
Dude, I tried-
rebirth, all
Yeah, watching this, I was like, okay,
Sometimes-
Calvin gave us a serious movie to watch. Like, I need to figure out all of the subtext in this.
Yeah,
but it may
sometimes
not
an
have been
eyeball
there.
is just an eyeball.
That's exactly how I
I feel
felt.
about the whole movie. It just is.
That's
Yeah,
exactly how
yeah.
I felt too when the movie was 15 minutes deep before the first word was spoken. At that point, I was really surprised that like this movie, I knew right away. I was like, this is gonna be really complicated. 15 minutes without a single line of dialogue, you don't see a movie like that. That doesn't happen. I've never seen a movie that went that long without a single line of dialogue, and that really surprised me when I was sitting down watching this movie.
It's definitely intriguing. Gets you a little hooked for sure.
So I have something to say about like the beginning of the movie. So we know she's been born, and she goes out into the world after that, and then she ends up in like a shopping mall. And I don't know if everyone knows this, if you've seen the movie before, or if you're gonna start watching it after this, but it's like filmed in like a guerrilla style, just like with like
Oh.
hidden cameras, and that's like literally just Scarlett Johansson in a shopping mall with like people who don't know that she's on camera.
Yeah, I mean, did you read like some of the way they shot most of this?
Yeah, the dudes in the street were not. A lot of them did not know either.
Yeah, it was almost all. It was a lot of it was filmed with hidden cameras. Most of them weren't actors. They were approached after they had been filmed, if they were acceptable, if it was acceptable that they could use their image, and then what would they'd have to do
Yeah.
after that if they were okay with continuing on as being a part of the film.
And they just showed their dicks.
So okay, so that's something I tried to do a little more research on, because I looked up the guys who like are in the seduction scenes and whatever, and they strip and everything. Were they also just?
Just people that started talking to Scarlett Johansson in a van on the street.
Because my assumption, because she has a lot of scenes where she's like, like I said, like rolling down the window, talking to people. There's a lot of scenes where she's just talking to people, and not all of them end up with like her taking them to the house or whatever. I assumed that the scenes with the people that she like seduces or whatever are actual actors, because like, yeah, how do you
No.
just get people? So they're all just regular
No.
guys.
They
They're
literally
all-
show their wieners too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
take
the
some
thing.
balls,
So they
yeah.
Wow,
so they were
that's-
filmed that way, and then approached afterwards if they were okay with, okay, we're gonna need you for this scene where you're gonna be walking through water naked. Are you okay with continuing on? Can we use your image for that?
So they weren't actors at
No.
all.
No. That
They
those
were in that moment.
So they had hidden cameras in the van filming all of that, which is why it's so grainy and video like.
Now that you say that, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and which is why none of them are recognizable, and it's again like it helps add to the type of interactions that was going on. Like why you needed Scarlett Johansson for this movie, I don't know, because you didn't.
She's
was
a babe, dude. That's why.
okay. Fair point,
Yeah.
but like as from an acting perspective, she was just like, oh. Hi, how are you? Do you live alone? Those types of things. You didn't need anyone for that. I felt
Well,
like they
I
would
would
have had more
assume-
issued with having an A-list actress being
I
recognized.
actually read some articles where she was like, part of the reason they had her in like dark hair is to like kind of obscure that she was this Hollywood celebrity, and she's not, because she even said in like an interview, she's like, it wouldn't make sense for me to be like some blonde bombshell. Like the whole point is that, like it's just like a regular person trying to seduce people, and so yeah, but yeah, to get into the kind of the meat and potatoes of the movie, it starts out like that's kind of the point, is she interacts with like a bunch of different men, and she's like kind of trying to seduce them to. I don't think the goal of like the movie leaves that really ambiguous, but she is like trying to get these guys to like go back to her house for some purpose, and yeah, like Jaden mentioned earlier, it lures them into some black goo. I don't know if we want to get into that.
Well,
I
that.
think that it's like not literally black goo in her house.
Oh, I think it is.
I think it's literal.
Oh,
I think it
as
literally. I think it literally is because she keeps taking him back to the same place, and that's basically the purpose is that they are farming them. If you you read the synopsis of the book that it's based on,
Oh, I didn't know it was based
Yeah,
on.
I
yeah,
didn't
it's
know that
based
as
on a
well.
book. There's a lot more subtext there that you could like. If you read any critical reviews of this film, they talked about like, immigration and rape culture and what it means to be a woman. I think those things are pulling too much from what was left over from the book. I don't think that those things are really meant to be here. The only thing that you could really say that this film says is like, who feels okay to be walking alone on a street at night?
Yeah, I guess the reason and again, this might just be me trying to like draw more out of this movie than is really there. Like I was like really trying, okay, like what is this movie really trying to say, you know? So to me it was like, because it, like, I guess practically, why would you have a black goo bedroom, you know? And so to me it was like, it was more like I thought it was supposed to kind of symbolize kind of the art of seduction. And so like she's like taking her clothes off and they're like following her in, like they're fully submitting to like whatever manipulation she's done to them until they're like trapped.
Yeah,
And so to me that's like how I took it, because I was like, why you wouldn't have a black goo room? Like who has a black goo room in their house? So
Well-
that's what I thought, is it was like to symbolize kind of like them fully being trapped in whatever kind of seduction she's doing. But if you have more context from like it being based on a book, then that makes total sense.
Yeah, well, I think the other part. So part of it is part of the themes in it. We're talking about factory farming. So what happens in the book is that those two characters, the biker and Scarlett Johansson's, the woman. We'll just call her the woman because that's what
that
she's.
is her credit.
Yeah, that's what she's listed in the credits as. So the woman and the biker are two aliens that have had their bodies genetically altered to look like humans, so they can actually wear the skin suits and look like humans. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and what they're doing is they're actually luring these men so that they can farm their bodies, and human flesh is a delicacy on their home planet. Yeah,
It-
So
it's-
you're getting way into. I did not like. So I was
That's
perfectly
fascinating. to me,
okay
yeah.
with not knowing all that.
I just
Yeah.
looked up the book and what it's all about, and yeah, the synopsis says extraterrestrial aliens. The meat is a delicacy on their home planet. It's very expensive.
So
and
I
that's
mean,
what the book is about. Which
Yeah.
obviously the movie doesn't hit you over the head like that. So
which I think is great, honestly,
Yeah,
because I had
but-
no idea what they were harvesting for. Obviously, knew they were
yeah.
harvesting these people.
The movie's
Yeah.
much more ambiguous, I think, on like the goal of the aliens for sure.
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't hit you over the head with it. Now I kind of want to read the book and see how they compare.
me too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what I love is how much the script kept the important parts of knowing that film is a different medium than a book. What you can and can't keep to make a feature-length film feel digestible, and you hit all of the main points. So that's why I think that this film isn't saying anything. What it's doing is just giving you a perspective of this character, and the reason I think it's perspective only of this character is how the film transitions from the types of shots. So we start with, before she starts abducting the men, there's a montage of just the camera tracking on single men walking on the street, and there's several of those, and that reason is you're getting into the perspective, okay, we are watching men, we're watching people in the street, we're watching men, single men, alone, or at least, and how that reinforces this perspective, this predator perspective, because it's not really saying anything. It doesn't need to say anything. It's just, this is the perspective of the character.
So one quick point about the Predator perspective. McKinnon brought this up last time that we were talking, is the score and how that can play into the way you feel about a movie and the way you understand what scene is happening. And every time Scarlett Johansson would hunt or lure a man into her den or whatever, or into her van, there would be a certain score playing. And at the end of the movie, when she is necessarily the prey, the score plays again, which I thought was awesome. And thank you for pointing that stuff out to me, Ken. I would not have noticed if you
I
had
did
not said
notice
anything.
that too, and I took note of that too. It's in my notes somewhere. I definitely picked up on the music, because yeah, that's something that everyone picks up on subconsciously.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
The music is trying to tell you something just as much as the pictures on the screen.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I'll be honest, like I didn't catch that. That's a good one. I was mostly, so the reason is like,
I guess I'm the teacher now. I'm the master.
yeah, let me pass the
Master McKinnon.
microphone over to you.
Well, and if we want to continue on the score more, like I think when she kind of really starts her transition to being like, okay, like I'm becoming less of like kind of this alien that is hunting
Like,
people.
less of a tool and more.
Yeah,
yeah.
the score almost completely cuts out of the movie.
Yeah.
There's almost no. It becomes a lot of like wind. You hear a lot of wind, and then the other thing, and I don't know if maybe Calvin can speak more to this from like I'm sure he has more knowledge on sound design than I do. There is so much emphasis on characters' footsteps. Like Scarlett Johansson's like walking on the street, and you hear her footsteps very loud, and then when she's like later on, when she meets up, like Jaden mentioned earlier, she meets up with a guy on a bus who like wants to kind of take care of her and like help her out, and they're walking on like some gravel, and it's just like all you hear is like footsteps. I mean, there must be a microphone like next to their feet, and I don't know if like I don't know really what the point was of that, but all I noticed is like the score is like completely gone, and there's barely a score in this movie to begin with, but it's when she is done kind of being an alien, is trying to kind of figure something else out. There's like no score to this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because at the same time, the perspective of the camera also dramatically changes. We now see, so you could take, so there's the scene where she abducts the swimmer, and you remember, so there's this.
That is the worst scene in the fucking
Yeah,
movie.
It is one of the
I
best.
want to spend some time on that.
I mean, not. It's a great scene, but it makes me feel so uncomfortable.
Oh,
I like that
yeah.
scene a lot. It makes me
I
feel things.
see.
I'm not smart enough to know what those feelings are, but I felt
Dread.
stuff.
So uncomfortable. Yeah,
dread.
it was awful.
There was
The
definitely
dog.
moments of
The
dread.
dog. I mean, that got
The
me.
baby.
So if
Fuck
you-
the baby.
so-
I don't
so
care
if-
about that.
so
I
to-
just care about the
yeah.
dog.
So to give a little like overview on the scene, it's like so Scarlett Johansson shows up at a beach, and she starts kind of talking up this swimmer, who to me I feel like the swimmer felt like very kind of disinterested in her.
Yeah, we should also mention, like, so what she's doing when she's talking to all of these minutes, she's basically interviewing them to see whether they are good targets. She's seeing if they live alone, if they have family, if anyone's expecting them right now.
Which I thought, like, I don't know if you remember, there's one guy she interviews who's like, he's like, oh yeah, I live by myself, and she's like, oh,
Yeah.
what do you do for work? And he's like, oh, I work from home. And
Yeah.
to me, I was like, oh, this guy's immediately gonna get killed.
No
Because it's like perfect. It's like he has no family that's gonna worry about him. He has no like coworkers who are gonna notice he's gone. And so I thought he was gonna be gone, but he
He
wasn't.
did.
That's not the first guy.
Yep.
Yeah, it is the first.
That
guy,
is
yeah.
the first
It
guy.
is the first
so
guy.
if you'll notice the way that they do it, they take the process, they film the process longer and longer each time. So the first one, they just showed him getting in the van. He disappears.
Okay,
The
God.
second
then-
one,
oh, Cal, I
the
never
second,
noticed that, Calvin.
yeah. So the second one, they
He's seeing the first guy. God damn it.
no,
Okay.
not the first guy. That guy was seeing the swimmer. Because we didn't
Okay.
get there that far.
Okay, I thought
The
he was seeing
second
the
one, I think we got to the house.
I think we saw the liquid in the second one.
Okay, I can't
Yeah.
remember, but yeah. So that was why. So it was very jarring because it was just a cut.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't remember a
It's
jump
very-
cut. It was a jump cut.
And to
So,
be fair,
a jump
we're
cut
kind
is
of
when-
jumping around like in the area of the film right now, but yeah, I didn't realize that like it's like you said they do get longer and longer, and so it makes sense that like that is the first guy, and I didn't realize that the first time I watched it.
Yeah, because what it was is a jump cut, and a jump cut is an editing technique where you take. It's really jarring. It's not a typical editing thing because you're generally editing to make narrative sense to continue. There's either you're going to have those slide wipes in Star Wars letting you know that you've moved to a different planet or a different time. But a jump cut is just a single cut and suddenly you're in a completely different place or something's different. So you have the guy sitting right next to the woman, jump cut, and he's gone. It's really jarring because that's not a typical technique, but it emphasizes the nature of how this is what she does.
Okay, yeah, I thought that like, oh, she must have dropped him off at home. It didn't work out, but apparently no, he's a goner.
Yep.
But yeah, to get back to the
scene. Yeah.
to the scene with the swimmer. So there's a dog way out at sea. Not way out, but he's way off the beach. And it is. It's like, I mean, and I really love that because it really kind of shows like there's a mother and her husband and they have a baby on the beach with them, and it's their dog that's out there like in the waves.
Yeah, and the riptide because
Yeah.
there's pretty nasty weather.
Yeah,
fucking
and
see
he's
the
trapped
dog
out there,
trap.
and the mother like swims out to go get it, and then the husband is like, oh, now I need to save her, and I thought that scene did a really good job of showing how much humanity like cares about each other, and then like the swimmer goes out to like save them too, and it's just like, oh my god, like people care a lot about people, and people also care a lot about dogs,
Yeah.
and it's like the
but
most,
not about their babies
Yeah.
apparently.
Well, I'm just saying, in the moment, the most important thing to them is saving each other, and the most important thing to Scarlett Johansson's character is I need to like get this guy back to my house, which leads to like the later scene where the swimmer's exhausted and she like bashes him on the head.
Yeah.
Because
part's
she's like,
awesome.
because she's like, I need this man, I need the meat, the
Yeah.
delicacy meat that I
Okay.
just learned about. So
Yeah.
like that was to me was like a powerful scene to show how much she is not like the same as a person. Like I wrote in my notes, cold-hearted observer.
Yeah,
like
for
she
sure.
was totally willing to let them all die.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's actually like, so that's what I wanted to talk about, compare and contrast the types of shots that we're using. So what's happening when they're out swimming by the rock and the woman is caught and then the guy swims out after and then you watch the swimmer go over there too. You get these really long shots, really far away. You can't really hear what's going on. Just this disinterested kind of. It's actually typically when you want to emphasize comedy, you will shoot a long shot because it will emphasize how small and pointless this scene is. So when you shoot it like that, it shows this doesn't matter. This is just happening, and then you cut to this shot of Scarlett Johansson, or I'm sorry, the woman walking on the beach slowly, uncaring, stalking her prey, which is a big difference in the second half of the filming. Actually, I do want to speak to you did hear her later in the van on the radio. There was a news report talking about that couple.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're like the husband was found.
18-month-old baby goes missing.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they're like reports assume that like they were all out together. Like so, she knows that like she was a part of that.
Yes. The important line is actually the one where they say that the search has been called off for fog.
I was just about to say that too, because the fog comes later in the movie.
Yes. So her change of heart after she is released, when she changes her heart and she releases the one guy, she stops in the middle of the fog and gets out and starts walking
I have
because
that in
the
my notes
search
too, yeah.
has
'Cause she
ended
leaves the van.
due to fog.
Yep.
And that is where the camera angles change. And when she comes out of the fog, she is now the subject. She is now the prey.
Well, because there's
Shit
like
biscuits, Calvin.
later on
That's
there's
what
like
4 years of college will do for you.
Well, because I noticed there's like a lot more really big wide shots on her.
Yes.
So like when she's like waiting for the bus, and this is skipping further along, but this is just to like talk about the difference in like camera angles. There's a big, huge wide shot, and and again, all you hear is like her feet on the gravel or on the road or whatever. There's a guy at the bus stop. He's like, "Oh, the bus will be here soon." So she turns back, and it's just it's a insanely. The shot is from like a couple hundred
You
yards
can
away.
see the
It's
bus
so
literally
far
turn
away.
the corner at the top of
Yeah.
the hill. Yeah.
Which is cool to me because I know that like there's some guy on the set who's like, okay, she said the line like cue the bus,
yeah.
and then you see the bus come over like the horizon and everything. So, but yeah, that just speaks to your point. It's like the film technique completely changes like once her character starts to change.
Yeah, and two, another motif that's really interesting when you talk about what is
Dude, he's full of big words.
Yeah,
man.
what the fuck does motif mean?
So a
actually?
motif is like a theme. It's a recurring image or symbol that
Okay.
it can be visual, it can be thematic in nature, in the sense that this is an idea that we
So,
kind
of like the way her score was when she was hunting and then she became the hunted. That's motif?
kind of. So I would say like in this instance, so I'll explain what I mean. So a motif in this sense was, you remember when she first takes the woman's clothes in the beginning of the movie, and there's that ant
yeah.
walking on her body. She picks it up and she carefully examines
yeah.
it. It's something precious, living, whereas she just stripped this dead woman
I thought that
naked.
same thing. I was
Was
like,
the woman dead? She did cry.
She cried, but she was dead.
She was dead? It
Yeah.
looked like she was looking right at her.
Yeah, but I mean, she was
I
dead.
like that scene a lot because it's like it shows like she cares more about this ant than like
And the person.
this person.
Yeah, and it also emphasizes how little sexuality the skin means to them. You're just completely naked, and it doesn't mean anything.
I'm so
For
glad
now.
that it was explained that was her as an alien, like taking over this
Yes.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, and
Because
then
I watched that, I was like, man, this is supposed to make me feel something. Maybe it's a symbolism of material possessions don't matter. We're all just naked underneath it all, or whatever.
I mean, you're starting out in the beginning of the film. It could mean fucking anything.
It could mean
Yeah.
anything. It's been 15 minutes and there's been no words yet. It could be anything. So,
So-
I'm so glad that it's an alien,
Dude,
and that's what it means.
I don't think that Scarlett Johansson knows that she's an alien until the end of the movie.
No. So it's the opposite. She knows she's an alien because that's her whole purpose. I don't think she understands the nature of her own skin, which is why the mirrors are so important, which is why I don't think she understands why the deformed guy was going to the store at the night. She doesn't understand
That he's like unattractive.
yeah, that, that he's unattractive because she doesn't have a good sense of what skin means to
Because
humans.
one of the themes of this movie is the skin, and that's why when they
It's
get
like
sucked,
maybe the
Yeah.
biggest theme.
when they go under the liquid, and there's that like a few minute scene with
That
the
part's
guy.
fucking disgusting.
It
That
was,
one- that
it
one
was
jumped. That one
powerful.
got me.
That
Yeah.
was really
no, it's
powerful.
great. I'm not saying it's not good.
So
It's-
there's
it
the-
is gross.
There's the person who got sucked under the liquid previously, and he's, I don't know, being processed or something,
Mhm.
and then suddenly he pops, and he's just a husk, and I jumped.
Yeah, I jumped.
That
too.
scene goes on for so long.
So
and
long.
It's,
So
it's
long.
like it's so unsettling.
Like
Yep.
in the beginning, like when you can see when he like reaches out to his hand and you can see how his skin is so much more loose. Like and it is, it's disturbing. Like it's weird.
It's very disturbing.
But I mean, like did enjoy the scene. Like it was intriguing.
'Cause
But, I mean, it was gross. Dude.
after he pops, the skin floats for a while, and I was like, wow,
so I think
wow.
I think that part's great because it gives you like the perspective, like the other dude seeing that happen and like, oh my fucking god, like I am
Yeah.
so screwed.
That's
now.
my fate.
Yeah.
But so what I was saying too, so this it's this learning experience of her understanding what she's in. Like she is this alien that is living in this skin and doesn't really understand the nature of it. And the things that she does seem to have sympathy for are the insects, because you remember too when she's staring at the mirror and before she
Ah, she
releases the
sees the
guy,
fly.
there's that fly bouncing against the
Dude, I
against
picked up
the,
on that. I was smart
yeah,
enough
I
to
did,
see
I
that.
did not. I'm dumb enough not to.
And so that's a Hollywood rule. Like it's okay. It's only the third episode.
So,
But one thing I was gonna say is that
Yeah.
Hollywood usually does things in 2s and 3s. Things that happen in 2s and 3s are important. And her having a relationship or a connection with insects
Twice, at least.
is important in that sense.
yeah.
And
So
it's also
to-
interesting because that fly being trapped could actually be interpreted in two different ways. It could be him trapped in the goo, or it could be her,
Her trapped-
realizing she's trapped in the skin.
So you're saying everything in a movie is a metaphor for something?
No. There's a lot to it. A lot can be interpreted that way, but there are plenty of things in this movie that just are. But there are some things that like to extend these visual motifs and metaphors beyond what's there to add further depth to the subject matter. But
So to kind of give more context to the fly being trapped, like we were talking to, like, so before that we talked about this guy who's like deformed, and that's a real person. There's no prosthetic. Like he's just a
Yeah.
Yep.
just a person, and it's called neurofibromatosis.
what's his name? I forgot his name. Did you have it written down?
Adam Pearson.
Okay, I was about to say otherwise. I was gonna rake
So-
you over the coals
yeah.
for like just talking about like
No. I did some research on him. So fun fact about him: he actually broke his leg like the day before he was supposed to have his audition.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so then the director like went to his like hospital room and did the audition there, and like told him right afterwards, he's like, okay, you got the part.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
Jonathan Glazer.
some cool things about that is like so he actually had input on how he thought the seduction scene should work. So
Which I thought that part was
yeah.
great.
So basically, he's walking on the side of the road. Scarlett Johansson pulls over, asks him for direction somewhere, which she's been doing throughout the whole movie. That's kind of how she starts every interaction with people. It's like, how do you get to this place? So she asks him, how do I get here? And he's like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store. And she's like, oh, do you need a ride? And so he gets in the car, and she starts like complimenting him on like his kindness. And then she starts talking about his hands. She's like, you have really beautiful hands. Like and I guess a lot of that came from Adam Pearson, like the actor in that scene. He was like, gave his input. He was like, how would I be seduced? Because like he knows he's not a beautiful woman is not going to come up to him and be like, wow, you're the really hot guy that I want to be with right now. That wouldn't like he would translate that to be like, that's okay, something's up.
Yeah.
And so she changes like her tactic instead of like kind of because earlier in the movie she's talking about how like nice someone's smile is and
Yeah.
like how charming they are, and like she completely changes her tactic to kind of seduce him. And I guess a lot of that came from like him, like the actual Adam Pearson was like, hey, like if someone was going to try and like seduce me, I know it's not going to be for my look. So how else would you do it? He was like, well, you know, you compliment like their attitude, how they act. You know, you compliment some other physical feature other than like their face or their physique. And so I thought that was a really cool like little tidbit that I looked up. Is he was like, you know, she kind of goes on about like his hands and everything, and she's like, would you like to touch me here? Can I touch you there? And
Part's weird.
yeah, it is, and it's like, and I think you just have a really built-in sympathy for the character immediately, like Adam
Understandable.
Pearson, and so like you like you know what's gonna happen to him, and you're just immediately like, oh, please don't like let anything happen to this
Yeah,
guy.
exactly. Because you do feel sorry for him, but there is, I mean, obviously things end up happening
Yeah.
to him.
And so then she does get him back to his house, and she does take him into the like her black room. And
goo.
and that's when Calvin brought up like the scene where she's got him in the goo and everything, and she leaves.
But he also asks, am I dreaming right now?
Yeah.
Yes, we're
she says
dreaming right
yes. Yeah.
now. So
'Cause
I think yeah, they
it's
might
like-
be entranced.
And I think she has like, well, I sort of thought she was saying that to be like, make him feel like this isn't real. Like I'm not really about to like kill
Because
you
he
in
was
this
getting
goo.
suspicious as well. I think that's what
Yeah.
that was about. Is it from the beginning he was suspicious? As like, as you talked about, it's like the actor saying like how like someone who looks like this isn't gonna, they're gonna be like, hey, something's up. I feel like the whole time the character feels that way, the entire time. Like whether like she sells it well or whatever, ends up getting him back to her house, but he's suspicious the whole time. And I think that makes her feel a little bit funny as well.
So it's interesting on the topic of the black room. I interpreted that as like a metaphor for when a man is in a room with an attractive woman, all he can really see is her. And I thought that was like that. I thought that was the interpretation that we were supposed to get, was like nothing else in this room matters. It's a devoid room, and all he can see is her. So it's interesting that like all you guys interpreted that as like a literal black room.
No, Connor has the same exact opinion as you. He mentioned
Oh,
it
okay.
earlier. But yeah, no, I don't think that you guys are wrong in that standpoint at all, because they are very much so focused on her. Like they have boners walking in, they're not giving a shit about what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like the thing is like yeah, you
Can I
guys
just
are,
say real quick? I love I think it's the dude who gets seduced at like the nightclub or the bar, and when he gets into the room, they have like a different kind of like score going.
Yeah, he's like dancing. Yeah, he's a weirdo.
So
Yeah,
into it.
yeah.
Like, he's like, oh yeah, it's like do good, do.
Yeah.
He's like so into it. Nothing about this movie is funny, but that part I was like, oh, I like kind
You
of
give a
chuckled a
little
little.
giggle.
It was
Yeah.
like I
Yeah,
chuckled
when,
a little.
Yeah, when things are like kind of half goofy like that, and they break such a sense of atmosphere and mood, you just kind of have to laugh.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
why this is happening. Yeah,
because the score
but
has
it
not
fit
sounded
well
like
as well.
that. Yeah,
Like, it wasn't just like no wrench thrown in there. It's not fucking Loki making a joke at Thanos when he's fighting him.
but it was very. I was like, oh, like the music changed and like he was acting like.
yeah.
Like, why would you act like that? That's why I thought the room wasn't like literal, because I was like, why would you act like that in that room?
Yeah.
But
I also thought like
Well,
the scene
yeah.
in the nightclub was good because she was so confused by dancing.
oh
in
my god,
general.
I
Yeah.
want to back up just a tiny bit before that. So she's stalking this guy into the nightclub,
Yeah.
right? And she's followed him in there, and she's gonna. I think she wants to catch him before he gets into the club,
And she fails 'cause
And
the
that's
women-
when she
yeah.
sees other people, and so then there's like a big group of women who are gonna go to the club, and she runs into them, and she is incredibly awkward around women.
Yeah.
She's very confused, and she looks uncomfortable, and I thought it was like kind of this like kind of juxtaposed sense of like how she is as a character. She is entirely comfortable talking to men the entire movie, and then she comes into contact with a couple women, like a group of women, and she is absolutely out of her element. And so I think it speaks a lot of the character. Is like her goal is not to get women, seduce them. Her goal is to seduce men.
Yeah,
and so I
is
thought
it
that was like a
is
little.
it just the men that is the delicacy? Is it just
No,
like
I think what it is it's I don't know how to act around this because that's not my script. My script is I'm a woman. I am talking to men because
Okay.
I can just I don't know if there's anything further to read out of that. There's some things that are just, things that happen.
I guess it just, to me, it thought like her character is like all about like her point is like I need to seduce men. My goal is to seduce men and like get
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And so when she has
Let's
to
stay on
interact with
task.
women, it's like does not compute. Like I'm not doing this.
instantly
like, that's
too.
what
But
I
she
thought.
gets
yeah.
like join the
yeah.
group and the bitches are all like, you look so hot, like you look
Yeah.
great, and like all this stuff. And like let's go party, girl, like all
Yeah.
the shit, like which is like that's happened, that's natural in like
Yeah.
human society, and
Yeah.
it's very uncomfortable.
But yeah, like Adam Pearson's scene. Yeah, we're gonna go back to. So she's
Adam? I thought it was.
Yeah, Adam Pearson.
Okay,
He's the.
I thought you said something else.
So he's been put in the goo, and Scarlett Johansson's leaving, and Calvin had mentioned earlier she sees herself in the mirror, and like you said, like the mirrors are like really powerful, like
Yeah.
kind of points for her character. It's like I think this is like the first time she's like really reflecting
Yeah,
on like
because I wouldn't
who
say she
is,
just
like,
looks at the mirror. That is a long
It's-
shot.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
she stares at
massive.
it for a while.
And I love why I want to see that on film is because how her face comes out of the blackness
Yeah.
and then is reflected in all of the gradients on the contours of her face. And as she just stares at it, you start to get that sense like she doesn't know what is on the outside of her skin, what this
Yeah.
skin actually is.
Well, and then like later on, when the motorcycle guy, your motorcycle alien, he kind of like loses her or whatever, and he's like kind of doing some investigation, like trying to figure out where she's at, and he goes into the house that's her house. He looks at the same mirror,
Yeah.
but he looks at it with a completely different view, and I feel like in his head he's like, oh fuck, like she figured out that like there's
Well-
more to her than like she can be more than just like this person who has this single
Does
job.
he make more of himself?
No.
No, I feel like that's other
Yeah, I think those are
motorcycle
other
aliens.
things. So another really interesting thing, it might not have been picked up because it doesn't mean anything to the narrative, is there is one time that she has returned with someone. I can't remember when it happened in the film, but she's just standing there and the biker is examining her.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yes,
like
yeah,
I wanted to
yeah.
talk
that's
about
walking
that.
around
Yeah.
her, just basically like, yeah, what I think that was trying to convey is that she's a subordinate, but she's also
sure.
like being observed and stared at as like an object. And it was weird.
She's a tool. She's a tool.
Yeah,
the
she's
whole
a
movie.
tool.
Yeah.
She's a tool. She's
She's
sexual
property
release,
of that guy. Yeah.
property by him, sexual release by men, and that's really what she is. Is when she looks at the mirror and why she releases the guy. It's this inner existential equilibrium where she realizes, well, I'm a person. This is
Yeah.
yeah. And
That's why I think
like,
when he sees the mirror too, he's like, I think he's figured out that she's figured out that she
Yeah.
can be more, and he's just like, God damn it, like, now
And I
I
don't-
have to go and solve this. Like,
yeah, and I don't even think like he realized it then. That's the movie telling you he saw the mirror. You realize what the mirror's purpose was for her,
Yeah.
and it's just a really fun visual clue for the audience to understand what happened.
But yeah, as far as the inspection scene goes, I like that one a lot too, because I think, so he like takes steps and like looks at her from like every angle, but then he like gets face to face with her and like stares at her face so much.
Yeah, his face.
And I
is-
think it obviously the purpose is like, you know, it's supposed to emphasize like to me it was like maybe it's like, okay, like are you doing everything to be as beautiful as you can to get as many like men as you can?
Yeah,
And I thought that for
like-
sure. And he like stares at her lips like a lot.
Where's
I
all the
thought-
lipstick?
And so I thought, because even before that scene starts, she puts on lipstick,
Yeah.
and then that's when like the inspection starts. And so I thought that whole scene was really to emphasize like, are you doing everything you can to like get us as many like men as you can? That's how I viewed the scene for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing that we could talk about too, if we wanted to get into the Jungian psychology of the archetypes of all.
Can
of
you
this, is
explain
that-
what that means? You keep saying that,
Well,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I've been like
off-camera.
pretending to be like, wow,
You
I
say?
totally get that.
Dude, yeah,
like,
don't worry.
Yeah,
So-
I know what you're
so-
talking about.
yeah,
so
no,
Jungian-
me and Jungian go way back.
Jung.
I've been,
So Carl Jung was a Swiss psychoanalyst that did a lot of work with Freud, but he broke from him after like 8 years of collaboration together, and he has this film is basically a giant circle jerk of Jungian psychology because it's based on archetypes. Basically, what archetypes are symbols, ideas that exist in the collective unconscious of humankind, and how we unpack those images from our shared narratives is how we interpret personalities and individuals.
So, like, Luke Skywalker is an archetype.
He's a hero archetype,
Right.
You could use like all of the easy ones. You know, that's that's what Hollywood likes to use. They use like all of the simple, boring
Certainly.
ones. The evil. You have the trickster. You have the hero. You have damsel in distress. Representing sexual virility, like in the point of humankind, like the purpose of journeys is winning over the woman. Those types of things. Those aren't the exclusive reasons that heroes go on journeys, but it's a very common thing. Like Super Mario, obviously. So, and archetypes are a device of how we interpret narratives, and the narratives of how we live our lives. So the narratives that we tell ourselves are usually through our personas. And in this case, the skin is her persona. So how she's starting to grapple with the skin as not just persona, but also her individual self, her ego and her id, this mixing of all three of those psychic elements is a big part of this film, which is why faces are so big. Just in general, because that's the extension of ego and id into the persona.
Can I just say again, like, how thankful I am to have you on? Because it's like, it is cool to kind of get a more in-depth look at like why characters are created the way they are, why they're written the way they are, why they act the way they do on screen. Like I think it's as valuable to me as it is to like the viewer. Like it's whoever's listening to this, like I'm getting as much out of this as you are. Like it is, again, I'm very thankful to have you on, Calvin. This is like, it's really cool to be like, I hear a lot of terms and cool language that I didn't know before.
Yeah,
and it's I think it's awesome.
It's super educational. Actually, I mean, in hindsight, like I will go into a movie with the knowledge I've gained today and have a different perspective for sure. Like I'm still have my own opinions based on who I am and stuff like that. But
You can tell me I'm wrong.
I don't give a shit if you're wrong or right, Calvin. That's not the point here. The point is that you are there's knowledge that's being gained here, and I think that's something that I appreciate.
Yeah,
That's
I just love hearing all this. It's like just really cool stuff that, like, I mean, I didn't realize I was gonna get a little philosophy lesson on this. Like, I think it's really cool. Like, I am thoroughly enjoying this. Like, it's, we're supposed to make this so that like anyone who's listening can enjoy it. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah,
so.
I'm so glad because like listening back to like some of the archetype shit, like I just like, wow, you can really tell I don't understand archetypes all that well. I'm just bumbling over my words. I understand like how to make films better than I do like specific like the psychology, like Jungian psychology, which is what I need to read out more if we're going to talk about The Lighthouse. But like, all the other stuff I understand fairly well.
Let me just say real quick, because the viewers can't see this. Calvin's taking this so seriously. He had like a laptop out. He had like a little script out to like make sure he had all his answers to questions right. He's got notes. He's taking to make sure like we're
got
staying
like a
on
bullshit Polly Pocket notebook.
Jane's got
like,
Jane's got like a little Hello Kitty notebook.
Oh my god!
But
And
it fucking works, all right.
Oh my god, I didn't see.
But,
the
like,
front of
no,
it.
no.
It's
It's
so
also
amazing.
work schedules on the other side.
It's your work notebook.
Yeah, it's 2 for 1.
Oh
Yeah,
my
Calvin
God.
came rolling in here with the script and a bunch of stuff, and we like barely got our sound system to work.
Yeah, well, it's because I spent 4 years in
Yeah.
college learning how to do it the fucking wrong
We're
way.
like, I was really content with this to be like a fly-by-night operation, like seat of our pants deal. But like Calvin's come in here and just like change the game here. So
He gave us some scenes under jeans, boys, and
Yeah.
we're rolling now.
Yeah,
We're wearing Levi's, not Wranglers, boys.
yeah, it's kind of surprising no one's just tabbed me for the next Lord of the Rings reboot.
Yeah.
dude,
Hey, let's get Calvin a job, huh?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the last big thing we were talking about is like kind of the release of the Adam Pearson character, like your deformed character.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like we said, Scarlett Johansson, she looks in the mirror, kind of sees more of herself, has kind of a realization, and then Calvin alluded to it earlier. You mentioned it earlier. She sees a fly like trapped in between like a door and a window, or she sees like a fly trapped. And we mentioned it's kind of like a reference to when she like kind of picks up the ant earlier. And what did you? Things are in 2s and 3s.
Yeah, 2s and 3s, and like I just can't think of another. It's just interesting how they've juxtaposed the.
Can you explain what like 2s and 3s are?
2s and 3s, things that happen in visual motifs. How often they happen in films. It's another Jungian thing referred to as synchronicity. They only mean something because it's another psychic state. Basically, synchronicity is the idea that the only reason the fly really means something
Is because the ant
is because of the
meant
ant.
something earlier.
We have come to the ant with the same mindset, the same psychic state of understanding her perspective of insects. She, despite after stripping this dead woman and, you know, and the tear falling down the dead woman's, she has no emotion towards it, but casually picks up the ant off of her body and examines it and lets it crawl over her. Seems to have empathy towards the fly that's trapped. And that's why those are important, is because it's happened more than once. Basically, there are other ways that you can do that. A lot of older Hollywood films, like the 50s, that they followed that formula a lot
I
more.
feel like a lot of the movie is about her growing empathy. That's a big part
Yep.
of the movie, is her
I wanna
understanding that's a
touch on
feeling
that.
she has.
For sure. So a lot of the scenes in the beginning, she like has these conversations with people like outside of her car, and she's like jovial, like seems very interested in the people, and then like she rolls up the window and drives away, and the look on her face completely is apathetic, does not give a single shit about what's going on. But she is like, I mean, obviously she's an actress, and so Scarlett Johansson is able to like do that as an actor and act very involved, and then all of a sudden turn that off and like be blank afterwards. But I mean, it means a lot for, I think, the character, who is like I said, seems so involved in these conversations, and then you look at her a second later and she just couldn't care less.
Yep, speeds off.
Yeah, doesn't care, and it, yeah, and again that totally changes later on in the movie. And so she lets the guy out, and he goes through like this field, and he's completely naked, and he's like kind of wondering. Apparently they filmed that at like 3 a.m. And
Interesting.
there's like an interview with Adam Pearson. He was like, it was fucking freezing. He was like,
It was Scotland. I mean, Scotland, is
cold,
always
yeah.
like
It is beautiful. The scenes. Like,
yeah.
just the
But he was
scenes,
like, he's like, we spent over an hour doing that.
Oh.
Of just me being like doing different takes, walking through this. He was like, it was over an hour. It's really cold.
Ah, that's amazing. Yeah, and it's interesting too, thinking about, so when the biker does pick up Adam Pearson.
Yeah,
just,
because that happens like shortly after.
Yeah, he crosses into the backyard of one of the houses abutting the field, and then knocks him unconscious and puts him in the car. And you see that woman
That's what I was gonna
staring
ask,
from
yeah.
the other window, looking at him. And the dude looks at him, and he doesn't care, because he doesn't care if he's recognized. It's a skin suit.
Yeah, that's
So, like, what are they gonna do
replaceable.
about it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's replaceable. Yeah, you can look at me. I don't care. Like, yeah, I just stole this car and my bike's still here. I don't give a shit.
So you just gave
because,
me an answer to a question that I was going to ask. Was about that old lady. It's like, what does that even mean? It's her looking down on that. And yeah, the fact of the matter is he does not give a fuck.
I
Yeah.
saw the lady also, and I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Is this a symbol for something?
Yeah.
But that was before I realized that the biker is, an alien who has come to this planet with a goal or whatever.
Oh, you hit not.
Yeah, so I saw the lady. I was like, why isn't she calling the police or something? And I thought like, oh, this is a goal. This is a symbol for something. So I was trying to look too deep at the scene, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes a leaf is a leaf, boys.
Yeah, and sometimes a leaf is not a leaf, and this is what makes interpreting film so difficult sometimes, is when do things mean something. So when you see her picking up these men and taking them back to the house, you think about the doors that they walk through. They're just the frame, and then it's blackness on the other side.
The door frames are weird also.
Yes, they're intentionally placed in the center of the frame, which is not. It's not a technique that we're taught to do. To make something visually interesting, you have think of a piece of paper being divided into 9 grids, and where those lines intersect are the points of interest to convey. You would put your subject in the top right to convey a certain type of motion, claustrophobia. Depending on where the subject is, like think of a man staring at a wall, and you have filmed it with the right side of the frame directly in line with that wall. So you have all of this empty space behind him. It's meant to create the sense of claustrophobia. Like, what is he looking at? Why is he looking at that? So the frame is meant to convey basically a representational box of how we see things and what the subject is interacting with, how they're meant to feel. So putting it in the center is a really interesting technique, because it's not good filmmaking, which I've never agreed with. Like, I think that, like, I like putting things center, because there's just sometimes there's a way you want to convey something, you put it front and center. So the reason that it's interesting and why it's important is because it happens all the time. I want to say that there are at least 6 or 7 shots of someone walking through a door frame in the whole film. And why it's important is because it's always the men in the beginning of the film being taken into the black room, but after the fog, the person that's going through the door frames is Scarlett Johansson, or the woman. So when she is taken back to the guy's house from the bus, she is let into his house, into his door frame, and then she's standing in the foyer. And she is framed by the door frame behind her. And she is just standing there because what happens now? I'm trusting this person. I am learning and changing, but I am inside of. I've gone through the black door.
There's fear in her.
Yep.
It's like does not know what's gonna happen now.
And then she turns and sees his big mirror, and there she is, a far off subject, the focus of a predator type camera angle. She's now the prey. She is now under his protection, subjugation.
I'm gonna go watch this movie.
Fucking
a second
great
time.
analysis.
Oh my
God,
God.
That's not-
Jesus Christ.
That's not the only one either. It's because when
There's
she's
more?
yeah, there's another one. So the other one that happens is there might have been one when they were on the beach walking through the castle, but I don't. That one is just that's
walking
that
down
was
the
fine.
stairs
That's-
and she's scared.
That's another doorway that she's like afraid to go through.
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
Because
So
she's never walked downstairs. Is my assumption in that movie.
that's
she
possible.
doesn't know how
No,
to
she
go
has because
downstairs.
she
Yeah.
came. No, she came down the stairs when she.
I know.
looked
I'm
at the
just
mirror.
joking.
Oh, okay.
The stairs.
Okay, I did not notice that. I literally thought she was scared. of
No,
stairs.
guys,
Yeah.
the stairs are a metaphor.
Are they?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
like, I'm open to your interpretation.
Well, no, we're skipping further ahead, but I thought the scene where she's going down the castle stairs is not to be like, she's not literally scared of stairs. I just thought it was to show that like she's at a point in her like kind of change, her transition, that like she's very vulnerable. And so the scene I don't think is necessarily be like literally
Yeah.
interpreted as her being scared of stairs. It's just this is her first time because the guy she's with is like, trust me, I got you. Trust me, I got
First
you.
time she's
Picked
being
her-
led.
It's her first time like kind of allowing herself to believe in someone else besides herself, and
When,
someone like letting her, she's not in charge anymore, someone else is helping her. And so that's what I thought is it was, yeah. And just before there's like a big puddle on the ground before they even get to the castle, and he like
Carries
picks her up
her,
and carries
yeah.
her. And so I thought that scene was more about like her learning to like trust other people, because like I don't think
Yes.
she necessarily trusts the guy on the motorcycle.
No, she doesn't. I
It's-
think
no.
it's her superior.
I think it's
So
more
this
of
is
her
her-
trusting her
yeah.
judgment too. It's
Yeah.
like her trusting in herself. It's like, okay, like
Like,
it's
I'm-
scary,
yeah.
but like I do.
I'm
trust
gonna
this
let
dude.
go and let this guy
Yeah.
like help me out, and so that's
Yep.
what, the scene is not about someone being scared about stairs. The scene is about allowing yourself to be vulnerable and trust someone to help you.
Yep.
That's totally what I got from that.
Yeah. And so the other doorway is when she is walking through the forest and she sees the logger, and
we
should go
to that later.
I feel like we're getting
it's,
there.
yeah, it's a good point here, because when we get to the end of the scene, you can see how some of the imagery starts to all tie together. She gets to the she talks to him. It's uncomfortable.
Guy's a fucking creep,
you
dude.
do
Right
notice-
away, you can understand
Well,
he's a creep.
you know, like throughout all the film, when she's picking up guys, she would be like, "Oh, are you alone?" And you
It's
knew
exactly like what you said.
That's
It's
literally
That's
like
the
the
situation
reverse.
she is in.
and that's
yeah.
literally what he said. Like, "Oh, are you alone?" And so you knew right from there
Hence
that
the
he was.
score.
Yep, and you knew
And the scorp comes in too. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
And so you knew from that line that she was now going to be a victim. And so when she she's tired and she gets to what is it? She gets to that little shelter.
The camping shelter, or whatever.
yeah,
like,
for hill walkers is what it was. What it was.
Which is cool, because I think that adds more to like her starting to kind of trust humanity and like kind of trust in that, because it's like all walkers are welcome here. Like, you're welcome to take shelter here.
And then it's
Yeah.
immediately broken.
Yeah.
And that could be, could be just like there are obvious technical challenges. Like, it also is just a public house stop point, so that plaque could just be like a part of
That's
like,
that scene, that whole part in the woods is filmed on like this very remote area where like you can't really drive to. It's like I know they show like she gets like a road earlier or like later on, but it's like super remote. It's like on an island off Scotland. It's like
Yeah.
Well,
what
it's
I'm
in the
saying
middle
is
of
like
nowhere.
that's probably like
Yeah.
a real place though. That they didn't build that.
Yeah,
No,
no,
of
it
course
is.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is. I'm just saying, it's like as far as you saying, like technically, like how would you get cameras there? It was actually really difficult because it is in like the middle of nowhere. It's only walking trails to get there. You can't drive to it.
Oh.
And they said I was reading about it. It was like an hour walk to get like everything over there. So like, yeah, if you want to bring up like maybe how difficult it was to like technically film there, it was like yeah.
what it meant was like technically that plaque was there. It was going to be there regardless. Like it wasn't put there intentionally.
Oh, I
And
believe that, yeah.
So it could be there could be subtext to it, or it could just be like, yeah, well I mean, it's a government building.
Dude,
We
can
probably
I
can't
just
do
think
anything
that
with
something is like? Can I just think something's like a metaphor in the movie?
Sometimes,
cannot,
yeah.
you
I mean, I'm
cannot.
just saying, like what I'm giving you is like the like
I'm trying to
sometimes
be.
like
I'm trying to be smart, and Calvin's like, no, actually, you were dumb for that. Like,
I mean, it could be, but it could be like, oh, you're overanalyzing things. It's just a leaf, that type of thing.
This is exactly my problem with the movie. Not my problem with the movie, but this is something I struggled with. Yeah, I was overinterpreting everything. I was looking at every scene with like my mind's eye, trying to figure out like what are they trying to tell me. Yeah,
Yep.
it is really difficult to watch a movie like this because we train ourselves not to like overthink movies like Transformers or Avatar because they're not trying to symbolize a
Yeah.
million things for us.
Yeah, if they didn't tell me, it didn't happen.
Exactly. So
Well, of course.
God,
So I'm waiting for Scarlett Johansson to tell me the plot of the movie, and it never happens. So I'm stuck guessing, and I haven't. I guess I'm not smart enough yet. I need to.
No, you
I need
just
to work
don't
on it.
just
think-
don't have
I
the
don't-
language base.
I don't think that you're supposed to be smart enough to understand this movie. I don't think that's the point of the movie. I don't think that this guy is trying to sell this to a certain degree of people or anything like that. I think he put it out there, like, as you said earlier, as interpretation of art. Like a
yeah,
painting.
it's art. Yeah.
Yeah. You, however you perceive it, is the way that he wants you to perceive it.
No, I think it's a good way to put it, and I interpret it the way that I'm gonna interpret it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm sure
that's what's great about the
I'm
film.
sure I'm gonna watch it again in a year or whatever, and
And
interpret
interpret
it
it
completely
different.
differently.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
same way that you look at a painting at one point in your life, and you
Yep.
look at it years later, and you're like, wow, I suddenly see something completely different that I didn't 10 years ago.
Yeah. And so there we are at the house, and this is the last door we go through. And she walks through the dark frame, and it's in direct contrast to the frame where the door that she walked in for the guy that was helping her from the bus. Because we had just been set up with the logger, we understood her as being the next victim of the film. And I thought it was interesting when she sat on the ledge, the camera tilted down to give a look at her knees, and they were black.
and her shins as well.
Yeah, and her shins as well. I actually think what was happening there was the skins that they
That's-
use are not
Oh
are
heck
not
me! I
very-
didn't even notice.
It took me
that,
a while
yeah.
to figure out because I was like, there's a lot of
It's
sexual.
obviously not bloody. And
Yeah, I thought there's obviously a lot of sexual undertones when knees are skinned in films, but it was black, and we find out later that her actual body is black, and that the skin is
Oh,
tearing. I
man.
don't think the skins last very long. So what was happening was this knees, because she also wasn't doing her job, was not in contact with the
Oh
bodies.
shit!
So she was degrading, and so
I just thought that was mud. I didn't
No,
even
no,
think about it like
I
that.
thought it
Yeah.
like I thought at first it was
Yeah.
blood. and
That's
then
cool that you
later
point that out.
on
Yeah, because
found
I
out-
didn't. I
yeah.
didn't realize that either.
and that's just my
I just thought it-
interpretation. Yeah, it could be. It could
But
be.
I
might be
like-
Could just be
overreading it.
dirt,
But I
we
like
don't
the
know.
thinking
Yeah.
of it.
I like
Yeah.
your
But-
interpretation of it better than my interpretation, so I'm gonna tell
What was
everyone.
yours?
I just thought it was mud. Like I just
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
but
the reason I
yeah.
didn't think it was mud was because it was a weird thing for the camera to tilt down and focus on.
Yeah.
It's not a typical thing for the camera to do to focus on.
So my thing was like, so I thought the reason why that was showing her knees and her shins, whatever her legs were showing, because and also with that scene when she's in there and we see that happen, her legs are dead and she's dragging herself back instead of walking. So I think that she had used them so much that her skin was starting to wear out.
Oh, that's really interesting.
I thought that they zoomed in on her shins to show that she stumbled because the hiker said, "Hey, it's slippery out here. Watch out." So I thought that they were showing us like she had to struggle to get here, and she's all dirtied up because of it, and that's the purpose of the shot of the shins, and like she's got grime on her and stuff.
Yeah, and so
yeah, but from now on, Kelvin, I'm gonna tell everyone that was my idea. I was like, did you notice that her knees are black? Like I did. I saw it first time. Did you see it? Like
Yeah,
her
it was so
her
obvious.
skin, yeah,
Like, how could you-
yeah.
how could you
I'm
miss
gonna
that,
I'm gonna
McKinnon?
like just punk everyone and be like, did you see that? Like, ugh, how did you not notice it? You fucking peasant.
Yeah.
All right, so
I don't think I would notice that if I watched this movie 100 times. I think I would think it's mud every time. So that's
I
so
instantly
interesting.
thought blood was my thing. It was like overworked. Was my instant reaction because of her tiredness after.
Gosh, that's so crazy to me. Yeah. Shins are they're just metaphors for something else.
Yeah, they're metaphors for fucking who cares.
So before we get further, I want to talk about the guy she meets after the fog.
Okay.
And so she gets out of the vehicle after the fog, and then she tries the cake, like Jaden had mentioned earlier.
She spits it out because she can't eat it.
Yeah.
Because, like, obviously...
She's trying to change. She's trying to be human, see
Yeah.
what it means, if it's even possible. Like, that was...
And
that
it's
was
not. Yeah.
That was just a film scene telling you, like, she is trying the most delicious human-type food she can.
That
and
cake
is-
looked
Yeah.
awesome.
You know what I thought
Yeah.
of? I thought of the scene from The Matrix when, the Merovingian is, like, describing the cake and, like, the girl about to eat it.
Nope, no idea. No.
And, like, the girl eats it, and, like, the cake is programmed to, like, give people an orgasm. That's all I could think of. And that is so not in line with this movie, but, like, all I could think of is, like, oh, that's, like, the same cake. But anyways, yeah. But so I think the point of that scene, and yeah, I'd written down a note about it, is like this is her, like, really, she's very curious about, like, how do I be a human? I think.
Yeah,
And-
can
and-
I change? Can I can I unite this persona with my ego and my id?
It's sort of like, is this not a skin? Like, can I be this?
Yeah.
And that's why she connects with the guy in the bus, or tries to at least.
And I think that's so great because, like, that's like the first guy who is trying to hit her up for a conversation. 'Cause
Yes.
he's like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need anything? Like, can I
Well,
help out?"
Technically, the guy in the club approached her.
Okay, come on, man.
But he saw her watching. He saw her watching him.
Yeah.
No, he
That's
didn't
the
see
thing.
that.
He
No,
said
did.
so. He said specifically.
He said, "I saw you following me. Like, I saw you."
Oh,
trying to
okay,
catch me
right.
up."
And
Yeah.
then she says, "I saw you outside the club." Oh, you did.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
So I guess I just thought, like, this was, if it was her kind of herself at the beginning of the movie, it would have been her initiating with him,
Exactly.
trying to, like, figure out, like, how do I get this guy? But it was kind of
Yep.
him initiating with her.
And what's crazy is he'd actually be a good target.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
All alone. Yeah.
Mhm.
All that stuff. Yeah. No.
Also, okay, I just want to bring this up, dude. Okay, so the Scottish bus driver can't understand a goddamn word he says.
Really?
That's why you watch the subtitles.
I do.
buddy.
Okay, I pretty much refuse to watch movies with subtitles.
That's crazy.
Oh,
to me.
really?
I cannot do it without it.
absolutely watch every film.
Every film with subtitles.
Mostly
Yeah.
because so many of the films that I watched were foreign language. Like, that was
Well,
just a
that's
thing
fine.
that you got used to.
Yeah, well, like, okay, so the reason I do that is because I feel like if I spend my whole time reading subtitles and I'm not watching the movie at all,
No,
which
that's
is
fair.
So
why.
I just do a quick scan.
Yeah.
And then go
Yeah.
back.
So I'm a slow reader, so I'm not, like, great at that. Which is why Calvin had brought up maybe we watch Parasite and review that, which I actually love Parasite.
Never
but
seen it. It's a Korean. The Korean
Yeah,
film, right?
it's Korean.
And so I just watched it, like, maybe a month ago,
good.
and I didn't put it off because, like, it's not because I don't think foreign films are worth watching, but I was just like, man, like, I don't want to spend my whole time watching letters on a screen and, like, not seeing the movie, which
yeah, and it's
which sucks, And
yeah.
I'm not, like, trying to be like, oh, well, we'll make it in English if you want me to watch it. I'm just saying, like.
That is
I
the
was-
exact way I am. By the
But
way.
I was like, goddamn, like, I just know I'm gonna be reading the whole time. And then I watched Parasite, and I was like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's great. And really, like, the way we're supposed to watch film, and it's difficult when it was harder to find the subject films for our classes because they're from the 30s or they're from communist Russia, so a lot of the originals were destroyed. You watch the first time through for narrative, and then second and third rewatches you pay attention to other things. So I think that's a good way of, like, honestly, I was pausing when if we talk about The Lighthouse, I paused The Lighthouse so many times because there was a lot more action in this film, so I needed to I was writing down quotes, I was writing down shots, and there was so much, the cuts were so much quicker that I just had to pause a lot of
I
it.
have so many quotes that I wrote down just because, like, Willem Dafoe says, like, amazing things
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
the whole movie.
Oh,
There's
man.
a reason he won the Oscar for that movie. and
Yeah.
He did great.
Yeah, and, like, oh man, the dialects were actually era
but let's hold
accurate.
on.
Yeah,
We have a whole nother show for that.
I could fanboy about
yeah,
that.
we're gonna finish up Under the Skin now.
Okay, but what were we talking about?
Yeah. Where do we leave off?
She goes into the shelter and she has her her
Alright.
shins all dirtied up.
All
I
right,
thought we
so
were
let's
No, I
let's
thought we were finishing up bus driver guy first.
Yeah,
Alright,
okay, bus
so
driver.
bus driver
you
guy.
couldn't under. So yeah, my sister actually had a Scottish boyfriend for a while, and I just loved that I was like the only one that could understand, and my grandparents would just they're like, oh yeah, we watch this Scottish show on Acorn. What's it called? Seamus McFly, and he's just like, yeah, like, but I'm a real Scottish person. Like, I don't know what that has to do with the shows that you watch.
All right, so like just a fun fact about Scottish is it's considered like a mutually understood language. It's not like even really English anymore.
So it's not even like a dialect.
No, I mean this is just what I read. I don't know if it's like factual, but like okay, like read like Scottish tweets. I mean they're goddamn almost. It sounds like it's a different language. Like when you read them, they look ridiculous. And so like an example of like other languages that are mutually understood is like Swedish and Danish and Norwegian. And so, like, all of those people kind of describe the other language as being the same, but with, like, an accent, which is how I would describe Scottish. Is like, I
Well-
mostly get it, but it's like, it sound crazy.
so
Like,
kind of like how like Mexican Spanish is different than like European Spanish.
No, it's more like Portuguese and Spanish.
Okay.
So and the thing is there are some characters between Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish that are different, but
but
when
it feels
you
like for the
say
most part,
them-
they follow the same rules under the
yeah.
same.
Well,
like,
when you say them, they
yeah.
all sound the same.
yeah, it's
they
like
sound
the same
very similar.
enunciation, but it just sounds like there's just something a little off about it. And like Scottish is just one of those ones where like I feel like I get it, but like, god damn, I don't know what you're saying most of the time. But like I feel like I could track a conversation with a Scottish person, which is apparently that's how like Swedish people feel like talking to Norwegian people, and like vice versa. It's like I can track it, but like God, it's just a little off. But yeah, that's
It's
a little fun
funky.
fact. Yeah, but
that's why subtitles help people. So.
but again, yeah, I already went over why I don't like subtitles. But man, that bus driver is. He's got a dope earring though. I don't know if you noticed that. He's got
Oh,
an
I
earring.
didn't- I was
I
reading the
didn't. I
subtitles.
actually did not like him at all. Yeah, I did not like
It's
that
like when I-
character one bit.
I'm trying to like really analyze this film, and like the main thing I took away from it was like, well, the bus driver had an earring, so I feel like I really got this movie.
You got it
I
hands
can
down.
bring
That's the whole
something to
point.
the table at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we were talking about is like Scarlett Johansson meets this guy on the bus, and
Super nice dude.
she treats him completely different than how she treats any other man like throughout the film, except for like we said, that Adam Pearson character.
And that's eventually not even in the
Yeah.
beginning. Yeah.
And she kind of, I think this is like the real moment where she like really tries to like kind of learn more about how to be a human.
She realized she
yeah.
doesn't.
Well, so she gets to his house, and the other thing that I think is really neat is like she's wearing his coat. So it's like it's another sign of her like kind of being vulnerable and like allowing someone to help her. Like she's just in
Another
like
skin.
yeah. And so she's wearing his coat, and they get into his house, and he cooks her dinner.
Nice Calvin.
And while they're eating dinner, they're watching this like comedy, some terrible.
Awful. European comedy is terrible.
Yeah, it's the worst.
I wanted to say something about that because they're both sitting down to eat, and he's like eating food and enjoying
She
the
does
show.
not, yeah.
She doesn't eat the food, and they cut to them cleaning their plates, and he's cleaning the dishes and stuff. And I would love to know what happened between that because she didn't eat the cake.
He doesn't mention it at all, and that
They
does
don't.
upset me as well, McKinnon.
I would
Yeah.
love to know what happened because I don't think she would have eaten the food, and I would love to see that scene and see the
Like,
guy's
"You're not
reaction.
hungry?"
Like,
Like,
you're not
yeah,
hungry? Are you
yeah.
okay? Or
You
whatever.
don't like my beans and bread.
And they
like,
breezed
what's
right
going
over
on
that.
here? Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Terrible Europe.
Yeah, it literally looked like beans, like a can of beans on top of some white bread.
But
That's what it looked
that
like.
seemed like a meaningful moment between the two characters that just got skipped over. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that could have been interesting. I would have loved to see that
Absolutely.
interaction.
I agree with you
Yeah.
100%, McKinnon.
Well, that's the thing is he just accepted it.
Because he's a cool ass
Yeah,
dude.
he's, like,
That
being a
dude
nice
is
dude,
like,
and
I would
so-
hang out with him right now.
And
Yeah.
so like McKinnon mentioned he's washing dishes, and so he has like the radio on, and he like kind of starts like tapping his feet, and he's like listening to the music, and he's getting into it, and she's like kind of like very docile, very subtly, like she like taps her finger. She's like, okay, like this is what people do, and like maybe I'll try this out and like give it a shot. And
So a little bit of foreshadowing there is when she was in the club and she was dancing with that dude, but she did not.
but she is terrible
no idea,
dancer.
yeah.
Yeah, like
She's-
he's like grinding on. He's like all into
and she's
it.
just kind of.
And you can't see it now, but I'm like grinding, and I'm all
Connor's
into it right
getting
now.
at it right now. Yeah.
And she just like doesn't get it. Like she's like, why would people do this? And so like yeah, it's like that's a super cool thing to bring up. It's like now she hears music and she's like, oh, like maybe I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
Like
She's trying to
in a
understand
different
fun.
in a different context,
Yeah.
like it can mean something else to her.
Yeah, and two, that scene continues when she goes into her own room. She strips
Best part of the
down-
movie.
Oh my god, stop, dude.
Yeah, but that scene is so important in non-sexual interpretation as well, because if you'll notice, the heat radiating is in this it's basically just a red slit, very much visually representative of the
the meat
red
box.
of the meat
The
shoot.
meat box.
Wow.
And
Okay,
so,
so
her
I
entire body is now illuminated in that red.
Everything's a metaphor,
Okay, so
guys.
time
Not a,
out
not a
real quick.
metaphor in this case.
time out.
Yeah.
Time out.
Everything's a
real quick,
motif.
'cause
It's
I
an
didn't notice
archetype.
that.
It's
like,
the meat grinder
instantly-
archetype.
You're making me sound so pretentious.
instantly, so like instantly in my mind, like my instant thought is like, okay, this dude's smart. Like he doesn't have to heat his whole house; he'll heat the rooms that people are sleeping in. But now that you mention it, is very much for visual effect.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so now her entire body, which she is looking
She's the
at,
meat.
yeah, she's
the meat
She
now.
is looking at it from a different perspective. The red light is representative of food and utility to them, and what does it mean to be one of them? What does it mean to be in this body? And that's why she's looking at herself completely naked, and why it is not sexual in the slightest is because she's trying to re-examine what it means to be a human and what humans can be.
Which
And-
I thought was really powerful because it's obviously easy to say, Scarlett Johansson is a very attractive woman, but the way
That booty though.
the way that the scene is framed, it's very much not about the sexuality of it. It's about her trying to understand her
Yeah,
skin.
absolutely.
Yeah, like
Which
she
is-
she like just moves her knee. She just like observes herself like moving. She's like
She's like
I
moving
think
her
it's-
back muscles and stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
She has like a creepy like moving
Yeah,
her
it is-
shoulder.
it's
weird.
weird, but also.
But it was
liked
mostly I thought the whole scene was like, let me figure out what this body is all about now. Let me figure out how I interact with like this skin over me.
Yeah.
And I
then-
think that's what it's all about. I mean, she's naked, but it is. And there's an interview with Scarlett Johansson, and she talked about like kind of how much nudity she did because she hadn't done it before. And she was like, well, I'm not a person in this movie. She's like, I'm an alien in this. Like, so it makes sense for this character to be like, want to figure out what you're in. Like, what am I doing in this? Like, how
Plus ticket
how do
sales.
I interact with this skin over me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think all those scenes of her being naked are like, for her, the character are completely non-sexual.
Yeah.
And they are purely like, especially like when she's looking at herself in the mirror with the furnace behind her, and she's like literally just moving to figure out like, how do I interact with this thing on me?
Yeah,
So-
what is food?
Yeah, exactly. And
what
the
does it
whole
mean?
non-sexual thing really comes into play a couple of scenes later.
Yeah, exactly. And this is I was trying to figure out what it meant at the time. I just wrote it down rather than trying to reinterpret it like right there. I didn't think it was representative, but when they were having sex and he tries to penetrate her,
And nothing's happening. Yeah.
no, she gets up and she is frantically looking down there, grabs the light and
Like,
looks
oh,
down.
Yeah, grabs the lamp like with no shade on it, puts it right towards her
Yeah.
crotch region.
And
Yeah.
what she was trying to figure out was if the skin broke.
Oh my god! I never thought of that. I thought she was trying to figure out if she had a vagina or not.
No, she was trying to see if her skin suit broke from him.
Oh, I disagree with you.
Yeah, I also I think that she found out she does not have a vagina right there. I thought that was the whole thing there.
So my take on that, I agree with Jaden. I think she realized like I don't even have the capability to do this, and I think
that's why she runs away.
and I think that was like kind of devastating to her because like okay, so she spent her whole kind of alien life trying to seduce men sexually, and so now she's realizing like now that she like willingly wants to do it, she can't even do it. That's what I took from it. And so
I
she's
agree
like-
with you 100%.
Yeah, and so I thought she was like, oh my god, like even like the thing I thought I was supposed to do on Earth, I can't even do
dude.
it.
That's
even
why
if I
she so
wanted.
frantically grabbed the light bulb and looked right at her what should be pussy,
Yeah.
but instead it's Kendall area.
Yeah, it
Well,
was. I
the
mean,
reason I think
yeah.
it's she's examining to see if the skin broke is because she's worried. The way she frantically scurries up is like, oh shit, if this is
That
it
makes
You're
sense.
right.
broken?
That makes sense why
it does-
why you would see that way.
It
Yeah.
does feel like an urgency with how she shoots up because I also saw it the same way as Connor and Jaden.
Yeah.
Where I thought like, oh, I thought my body worked this way. I thought I thought I had a vagina or whatever. So when she realizes that and she grabs the light bulb and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I misunderstood my body" or whatever. I also saw it that way, but you're right.
But
there's
yeah,
a,
you are
a
right.
real
'Cause she
urgency
had
about
just
it.
looked at her entire naked body.
Yeah, and I think what I saw more was fear rather than disappointment.
Is that why she
I don't.
was scared later, like 10 minutes later in the movie? You think that?
Well,
was?
okay.
Well,
What?
that and actually that's why I want to talk about that, because that scene to me is, I think, the most powerful. It's all of the archetypes and all of the
I don't.
motifs
we'll
come
get
out.
there in-
I don't,
we'll get
I don't
there
wanna
in a
cut you off,
second.
but I want to discuss this one a little more because
Sure.
like I feel like we've reached kind of a divide in the room, and I want to talk more about it. So like, so they're about to have sex, and you look at the guy's face, and he's like kind of confused because he's like,
He's
he's
trying.
like trying to have sex and like it's not working, and so that's why like, and I think, to me it was a reaction to him reacting. It was a reaction to him being like, okay, like I'm not like having sex with you yet, like what's going on? And that's when she's like, oh my god, like why am I not working the way I think I'm supposed to? And the reason I take that instead of like her skin tearing or she's worried about it tearing is the man's like kind of reaction, like the look on his face is he's very like, okay, like I feel like I should be like in now, like we should be doing this, and they're not. And then it's right after that is when she's like, that's when she like checks and like figures out what's going on. So like, I don't think your interpretation is wrong. Again, it's like everyone
Right.
reacts,
Everything is interpreted
yeah,
here.
everyone
Yeah.
reacts to the art differently. But
Yeah.
I definitely don't think it was like a skin tearing thing.
I'll say this.
I'm just saying, like, why would she even attempt sex if
Exactly.
she thought if it was gonna tear through the skin?
If she thought she was
yeah.
gonna turn this kid, and like he like obviously hit, like it wasn't just like one pump, and like she was like, oh shit, what's going on? Like that dude tried, like he was getting after
And
it.
the other thing is like she doesn't know what sex is supposed to be like. So like,
Why isn't this working?
I think that's why I think she's basing her reaction off of his reaction, is
Yeah,
because she doesn't
okay.
like she doesn't really know, and so when he's like, okay, I don't like get this right now, like why am I not having sex with you yet?
But
and then
see,
she's
the-
like, oh shit, and that's when she checks. But I mean, again, I think that's why we have a lot of different people from a lot of different point of views on the show right now, because
exactly.
I
The
think
great
it's
thing
cool
about
yeah.
this movie is that your interpretation can be 100% correct,
And it also
as can
yeah,
be ours.
and
yeah,
that's what's great is like I would say that yours are probably more right in that sense. And what's nice is that it doesn't matter which one is right or wrong.
Oh,
because
it doesn't change the narrative or the
because
story
it's
at
still
all.
like it's still like obviously there is something going on that is preventing her from exploring this part of herself.
Yeah, because the way that we interpret it, the way that you interpret it, it makes us appreciate it the way that we want, and then we can talk about it afterwards and interpret it
Yeah.
differently, which is exactly how art should be.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, it is her trying to grapple with the nature of her
point, Skeeto.
genitalia, trying to work in conjunction with actual human genitalia.
yeah.
Yeah, which in that scene I thought was really important because that's the last scene, and the next one is her walking in the forest. And then-
Running, I'd say.
what's that?
I would say rushing, like she's running
Sure,
away.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, they don't show her interaction with the gentleman after that.
Afterwards, no, I
That's
feel like
it.
she puts her on clothes and she dips.
And I thought like, oh, she's in the forest now. She went for a walk without him, and she was coming back afterwards.
So the whole time,
It-
like
that doesn't
your
happen.
point with that is like she's trotting along, whatever. I expected to see him following her
Yeah,
behind.
I thought
but I
that-
think that because he found out also like she doesn't have a vagina, like, there's no point in me being this nice guy anymore.
Well, I'm not sure that he made that connection.
I mean, I made that connection.
Sure,
Maybe I'm
yeah.
a piece of shit,
Maybe
and
you,
that's fine.
maybe
Like,
you've had sex
'cause,
more
like,
often than this guy has.
Like I don't. I mean, he got ScarJo in his room. I don't know if I could do that. If
Jane's
we could,
like,
lady.
I've ran into too many close-up vaginas to relive this. Like this guy. It's like I get where he's coming from.
yeah. Why isn't it there?
But I did notice that by the time the end of the movie came, I was like, wow, this guy's just out of the movie after that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was significant that was the last scene that he was in.
It is
Yeah.
significant.
Then she's
Because,
just
yeah.
in the forest after that.
So
Yeah.
we're going through the forest, and we have talked about before the creepy logger guy.
Yeah.
It literally says like, watch her step in. All this foreshadowing of like he is a villain at this point, and she's he's the predator and she's the prey. Absolutely,
Yeah. The power
correct,
dynamic
McKinnon.
has shifted.
Shifted, as does the score and the tone, which plays to my heart thanks to Skeeto.
Well, and I looked at that scene and I thought like in a very short amount of time she experienced like the really good side of humanity and the really bad
Negative,
side of it.
yes,
Because
absolutely,
actually,
yeah.
like when I first saw that, I was like, oh, like what a nice dude. Like I didn't. I mean,
Oh, I instantly thought like the second I saw the dude's face, like
I
this
mean,
guy's awful.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd seen the movie before, and so I know how it ends. But like, just their exchange, I was like, what a like. He seems like he's trying to be a genuine dude. He seems like he's trying to be nice. Like I said, trying.
That's the problem.
And so that's what I'm saying. It's like
The other dude on the bus wasn't trying. He
yeah,
just was.
it just feels
Yeah.
like she goes back and forth from like having like good experiences with humanity and like bad like experiences with humanity.
Which is a perfect representation of humanity.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that because that's exactly how Scarlett Johansson appeared to all these guys when she pulled over the car.
Bam, Skeeto.
She appeared to be interested in these guys, trying to, figure out where they were going and, showing interest in them, which is exactly what the guy did, mirroring the predator and prey dynamic. Absolutely.
So like which we have alluded to before is she finds the shelter, which is made for any hill walkers or what the fuck they're called.
Yeah, anyone who like needs to take shelter,
Yeah,
they're welcome
so
there.
she walks in there. It's I mean, it's actually not like a bad place. Like there's a chair.
But again, I
there's
think
some
the point
mats.
is, to be like, again, I think it kind of sets up
Like this is a place
like
of refuge.
this is a safe spot.
Yes,
Like, you
absolutely.
should-
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like she experiences like the really good and really bad of humanity.
So-
like in this last scene, like more than ever. It's
So
like,
she
it's
starts.
a really good spot.
She falls asleep because she's dead tired, which we've alluded to before, as far as her knees and shins being worn out a little bit. And, I believe that it was her skin showing. Same with Calvin here.
Yeah, I do, and I knew that before Calvin actually.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Connor
yeah,
actually
obviously,
told us
'cause
all
no one would
about
think it
this
was mud.
before.
Yeah,
Right.
I was the first one to think about
Um,
it ever.
So she's sleeping, and she wakes up to creepy homeboy logger dude, which we don't know he's a logger yet. He's just a woodsman, rubbing her thigh, pretty close to what her vagina should be. So clearly, like this dude is clearly trying to sexually assault this woman. It's fine. It's fine. It's sexual assault's not funny, but the way I word things sometimes can be humorous. All right.
I thought you were pointing the finger like, it should be there.
It should be there. I would be. I mean, if I was the
Anyways,
dude in
yeah.
the scene before, not the raper, I'd be a little sad.
Anyways, yes, he's
But
touching her,
so she wakes up to this guy trying to rape her, and she runs away. And I don't think it's because I don't think she understands what rape is or anything like that. I think it's because she's scared.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That
because
she
she's
is-
gone through the door.
Yes, exactly. That she is
door.
scared. She doesn't want to experience what she just experienced again. So she's dipping, dude. She's out. So she's running through the forest. She gets away, and then she tries to steal the dude's truck. And she realizes she has no idea how to drive like a stick shift big logger truck.
The keys aren't in there.
Is that the case?
Yeah.
Well, and I thought that she was honking the whole.
Fuck.
I thought
she
she
did.
was-
She accidentally honked. Like I
Yeah,
thought she
she
actually set off
she
the alarm.
honked trying to like get someone's attention.
That's interesting because I thought she was trying to get that gentleman's attention.
I did not think. I thought she was trying to get
She
away and
saw it.
accidentally honked.
It didn't make sense to me when I saw that, but I was like, is she trying to get his attention? I was really confused
No,
about that.
I thought she was trying to like signal someone else, like maybe
Yeah.
his partner, whoever else is
Because
there.
she
That's what I
honked
thought.
a couple times
is
as she
that-
was getting out.
Because he sees her
Oh,
and he's
okay.
like oh, like he knows she's in the truck, and so I thought that she was trying to get someone else's attention.
Okay, so she was hoping that there was another person in the woods or something.
So real quick side note here. Every movie I've ever watched where there's a fucking rape scene, it makes me the most uncomfortable. So, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I've heard is a great film from many people. I've seen it twice.
Dude, Calvin literally rolled his eyes when you said it was a great film.
So I don't have any fucking idea,
Cannot,
Calvin.
the American one isn't as good as the Swedish. one.
Okay, I have
Oh my
no
God.
fucking idea.
There's a
Because
few
every
reasons
time
for
I
that.
watched that film, so the first time I watched it, I watched up until the point where she gets raped, and it's very fucking vulgar, and I stopped.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
the next time I watched it, I was like, okay, it's supposed to be really good. You can get past this. And immediately after she gets raped, she takes a fucking, oh my God, what's it called? Breaker bar, which is what you use on your lug nuts to fucking snap them things, and shoves it up that dude's ass.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And I just stopped it there. I've never seen anywhere past that part of that movie. So this part in this movie where she's going through the sexual assault of this guy, not only trying to rape her in the compound or whatever it is, the shelter where they have for hikers.
Yeah, then he comes back
And then
gets her
fucking
again.
chasing her and tackles her down, dude, and like starts tearing off her clothes and shit.
It's a
That
hard
makes
scene
me
to watch.
so uncomfortable, dude.
Yeah,
and
no,
it
and-
is rough to watch. So if you're gonna see this film you haven't seen before, just be prepared. That part is super super uncomfortable.
I think the fact that it is uncomfortable means that they did an excellent job.
Excellent job. I 100% agree with you, McKenna.
Because
Like,
I sat through it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is
the worst.
brutal.
Yeah.
This is like something I could never imagine. And I think they nailed it. They
An
did such a good
absolutely
job with it.
Yeah, 100% agree with you.
Yeah,
Well, and I
this
think
was-
it's a big, it's like a big turning point, especially for her character. It's like because she's been in control of every situation she's been in with every man ever. Like she's been in charge. Like even when she's with the guy with the bus, it's like she's like. She like is submitting to like allow this to happen. Like she's allowing this to happen. It's like she's still
but she's the one in control.
Yeah,
she
like-
has the power.
yeah. And this is the first time where she's like, oh my god, like this is absolutely not what I want, like at all. And it's a really like Jane said, it's a really brutal scene to watch. And I just think like any of that content in general is just like it's just always tough to watch. And like McKenna said, when it's done right, it should make you uncomfortable. It
It's
should
powerful.
Make you,
It's very powerful.
like,
dude.
Yeah.
it should make you kind of like I'm doing like curling my toes. I'm like curling up in a ball. Like it makes me feel gross. Like
Yeah.
I don't like watching it, but like if you can execute that in a movie, I think that means that you did your
Yeah,
job.
Fucking great job. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, like all the actors did their job, and the director like choreographed that like perfectly, and it's like yeah, it's a tough scene to watch.
So alluding to we're now at the scene where she escapes from the housing that's there in the forest, and she's running from this guy. The guy catches up to her again. She's chasing in the forest. Calvin, why don't you go ahead and lead us the way through the rest of this movie?
Yeah, I mean this scene is so powerful, and it's so, the powerful part that I'm referring to more is when he tries to, yeah, obviously it's an undoing of the power structure that she had created for herself as being a subordinate to the biker and luring these men, and then obviously eating them. But what now happens is when he starts ripping off her clothes, he accidentally tears her skin, and then you start to see that the face is falling off. And this is my favorite part because she pulls off the head and the face and turns it back around
Looks right at it, dude.
to look at it.
It's
I
so
don't think that she can actually see. I think
Oh,
that
shit.
I think the skin suit can see. And
Because
that
it's
is
blinking the
her.
whole time as
Yeah,
well.
it's still blinking and looking at her, and you can't see eyes on the alien body. I think it's the persona actually looking at the shadow self.
Shit, Calvin.
More Jungian pretension here, but I think it's the persona falling off and then coming to terms with who the shadow self is and what I really
Ooh,
am.
Shadow Cell.
Yeah, another great.
No, it was
you know,
nice.
like-
I liked it. Yeah.
yeah, you'll have to look up the Carl Jung Wikipedia after this if you wanna, and you'll know as much as me.
I sort of
yeah,
research
Kenneth's
yourself,
pointing
sir.
to his
Yeah.
computer over there, like, oh, I know it all.
I sort of looked at that a little
I'm
different.
10 steps ahead of all of you.
So we're here for Skeeto.
So I sort of looked at that a little differently. I was like, not that the alien body couldn't see itself. I thought that it could see the head, and so you see like she's holding the head, and it has a single tear, the same way that.
Oh shit! Like the woman in the beginning
the-
of the movie. Yeah.
And
Things
so I
in
thought
twos.
it was like sort of the kind of timing of that. It was like now she's realizing kind of like how sad it is to like lose your humanity, because like I thought that opening scene where she's taking the clothes off that girl, and I know she's dead, and the tear is like kind of a symbol of like to me it was like I've lost my humanity. This person is taking my clothes. They've taken my identity. Like I'm no longer here. And I sort of thought of that end scene is the same way. It's like she's no longer this skin anymore. She's lost that, and there's that one tear that comes out that's like reminiscent of that first scene.
Yep.
And she's like, I don't have this anymore. I've lost this. And so I thought it kind of circled back to like the way that the clothes are taken off that girl. The skin is taken off Scarlett Johansson's character.
Yeah, and that's what I'm referring to. So the shadow self is an archetype of basically your real self that's filled with shame and guilt, and so it's repressed, and so it becomes a complex. So the shadow self is generally a destructive force. A really good example is Black Swan. If you've ever seen Black Swan by
I have not. I've heard it's
Darren
amazing.
Aronofsky,
Natalie Portman is here naked, apparently.
God
Yeah,
damn it.
exactly.
That's the only thing you care about, man.
I love boobs, dude.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
It's a really, it's a genuinely good
I'm
movie.
not saying that it's not. I'm just saying that there's an added bonus of boobs.
But yeah,
Okay.
It's not a
so
problem.
in that film you have Natalie Portman, and her shadow self is reflected in Mila Kunis's character.
It's like kind of the character, it's like kind of the person she wants to be.
Yeah, the person that you want to be or don't
versus the
feel
person
like.
who you are.
Yeah, it's basically like the same thing with Lighthouse. Willem Dafoe can be like the shadow self, and Robert Pattinson would be the persona. I've given into, this is the way things are. I'm the captain here. I do what I want. Versus the persona, like, no, we have to follow the rules. We have to go by the
I think
book.
Robert Pattinson sucks.
Oh my god, he's amazing.
Like acting,
How
great.
would-
His character is awful. Like I
Oh
don't
my
like
God.
him.
okay,
yeah.
I see what
I
you
feel
mean.
like, oh, man, that dude.
Which also, like, Robert Pattinson's best acting in his career is with characters that I hate. So
Yeah.
that's good. It's
he
a good
only
thing.
likes to. The only reason
Again,
he did
we're
it is
hold
like,
on,
yeah,
hold
we'll
on.
go
We're
get to that.
going into that later. We have a whole
Get
nother
sidetracked,
show.
all right? It happens.
We have a whole
Get
nother
excited.
show dedicated to
We'll
that.
be
Alright,
back.
we are very close to the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
So
So like we said, she gets her skin torn and like she's looking at her own face, and then like the most terrible thing ever happens. The logger shows back up with a big jug of
so he
gasoline,
fucking pours it all over her, dude.
douses her.
I got some thoughts about that. That was super weird to me, and
It's super weird.
I
yeah.
didn't know why that happened. It didn't make any sense to me that this guy would go to his car, come back with gasoline, and pour it on a woman and
You
set her on
fucking
fire.
kidding- Dude, did you realize how scared that guy was?
I just think that is a really peculiar response to that interaction.
He doesn't have a gun. If I had a gun, I'd shoot it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the thing
I feel
is
like, that's what you gotta
Yeah,
do there.
I don't think that. I think if you're face to face with some crazy alien body you'd never seen, and if you're a dumb logger guy, I think that's totally acceptable.
Whoa,
Yeah,
we
I
don't know
mean,
he's
even,
dumb.
like-
Okay, we know he's dumb. He's a raper.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
definitely a fucking idiot.
I think
Anyone
he's
who-
pretty
Yeah,
dumb.
he's dumb as shit.
But the other thing is like you just don't know how an individual is ever going to respond in any given situation.
Totally, yeah.
So there's a range of expected outcomes that wouldn't be implausible. And in this case, the reason that he comes back with the gasoline and sets her on fire is for the visual motif of the end of her body smoldering and the smoke.
It's for the motif.
returning to the sky.
Totally.
Shit
For-
balls, Calvin.
For me, it was just that if it was me in that situation and if I saw this woman whose skin, as far as I was concerned, was falling off or whatever, I would get in my car and drive away. So for me personally, I was surprised when I saw this guy come back with a bunch of gasoline and douse her with it. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, so suspension of disbelief there. So, and I don't know if I've been using that term and it doesn't make sense to anybody.
I think everyone's.
Yeah, but suspension of disbelief.
I think everyone knows that
basically-
you just
You
just
say
kind
things,
of.
bud. It's
Okay, so suspension of disbelief is the movie going experience where this is not real. I have suspended my disbelief, and anything can happen on the screen because anything can happen.
I think a good example of that would be like watching the live action Aladdin, where the genie can grant
never
wishes.
seen it, never will.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like seeing a genie who can grant wishes. Like obviously you have to suspend disbelief for that. Like that's a really
you could have
easy-
used the reference of a Robin Williams instead.
I'm just saying.
saying.
Well, I wanted to use live action because that's easier to.
Live action.
Yeah, because then you've got
It's
the
easy. It's
uncanny
easy to
valley to
suspend
work with as
disbelief
well.
in an animated movie. It's easy to suspend.
Well, yeah,
disbelief
everything's
in an
okay.
animated
That's a fair point, but Aladdin is based off an animated movie. It's not.
Well, it's actually based off a very old story. So
Not that movie is based off the 1993 reenactment of whatever
Okay,
story you're fucking talking about.
anyways,
so.
I think we all understand that term. That's it.
Okay,
I know you're very smart, Calvin, but
I do just want to
us regular people also understand.
I do just want to know
suspension of
like
disbelief.
what terms like because I remember in school
Use
it took
any
me a
term
while
you
to
want to, dude.
like teachers would just say that all the time like obviously we all know who Jean-Luc Godard is, and everyone's nodding their head and like, is that?
I think you
actor?
you mentioned
It's the captain of Starfleet.
yeah, you mentioned Uncanny Valley,
Yeah.
Starfleet,
and I
yeah.
think McKinnon has a really good explanation for Uncanny
Okay.
Valley.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
So the uncanny valley, as it was explained to me, it refers to a graph that shows the correlation of how close creators of the human face, when they're animating it, the closer they get to how real a person's face looks, the less it actually looks real to people, because there's certain features that people look for when they see a human face. So
Big
the closer
eyeballs.
so the closer and closer someone will get to achieving that, the further away it actually
Makes
looks.
you uncomfortable almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the graph reflects that when you actually get to that pinnacle of this is actually what a human looks like in an animated form, the graph dips, and that is the uncanny valley, and it comes back up again, and that's what the graph reflects.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know where the term came from, but I did know that. That's basically the idea.
He
It's
literally
like
explained it to
something
me
that-
today, and I was like, "Oh, now like I've known the term and what it meant, but when
Yeah.
he mentioned like the valley in it, like I was like, oh, that makes sense." Because like you look at like a Powerpuff Girl, like you understand that's a human person, but you
Yeah.
know it's like drawn nowhere near to
Bitch
what a
ain't got
human
no
looks like.
fingers.
But then you get up to like Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, and you're like, like I know it's him, but like, fuck, it's not him. Like,
Yeah.
and that's the valley where
Is that
they-
that's Forrest Whitaker's character?
no, Grand Moff
What are you talking
Tarkin.
about?
Grand Moff Tarkin is in A New Hope. Like he's the actor has passed away.
Oh,
But they
okay,
animated
I know
him.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they
The
animated
Imperial
him. Yeah,
guy.
but they animated
I
him
know
back
it's
in,
you. I got you.
and they got like really close. And like I think the big thing is like video games. Video games can animate characters that look really real, but you still understand they're not like them. But when you see like Grand Moff Tarkin in a movie, you're like, oh, that's like not it. Like it's just not it.
Uncomfortable.
But we're getting very sidetracked.
Sorry, I'm
now.
very sidetracked, especially with the last couple
Yeah.
of minutes coming here.
So, I want to talk about the burning scene more, and
Sure.
like you talked about it being like her smoke returning to the air.
Yeah.
Why do you think that? Because I didn't
I didn't get
think
that at all either. Yeah,
Why would she return? Because she didn't like start in the air, I guess.
I thought she
Yeah.
just fucking died.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just thought she was
so-
dead.
That was.
I
from
thought the
a-
smoke was a symbol for
Yeah,
sure.
I
I
thought
just didn't
a
know what
leaf
to
was
feel.
a fucking leaf, Calvin.
Yeah,
What's going
or
on
you
here?
could just read the director's interview.
Well, that's fucking kind of cheating. If we're
Dude,
being
Calvin,
honest.
that's
All
cheating. I
that's
didn't read that.
Yeah,
That's cheating,
that's
dude.
Cheating,
Yeah, you
The-
guys
the-
are over here
the
like Calvin,
point of
like,
this-
you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like, well, source material.
Okay, well the big point of this is we're supposed to give our opinions as just the layman, and you're going
He's
here
not a
getting,
layman though.
you're going here getting cheat codes, which is unfair.
I don't know. I feel like my other points that I came up with, by my own.
No, Calvin, you did fucking great.
Yeah, it
dude.
would
Yeah.
be
Let's
better
not-
let's
than,
not
than
argue
this
that.
one.
But I
that
didn't-
was like also from the.
I didn't see it that way. I just thought it's like it's just a very, very sad end to like someone who was like honestly given their
I
all
thought-
to like try this whole thing out, and I just thought it
So-
was it was just a very sad way. And what I thought was cool is they had the camera point up, and I don't know if it was digitally like added, but like snowflakes land on the camera to kind of like disrupt it.
Didn't
That's
see
good,
that.
yeah.
My,
And I
my
don't know if-
internet connection in my basement
Oh.
is fuzzy at times.
But that does definitely happen. It's awesome.
But I just thought it was cool. Like it was just visually cool. To me, I thought the ending was just supposed to be like visually like
Yeah, and
a
it works
great
either way.
death scene.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
works either way.
So that's the ending of this movie. Is the way that I want more movies to end. Is
Ugh.
where it's fucking
Preach.
over.
yeah.
And
There's no
that's
there's
it.
no like does she come back to get her vengeance?
There's no
I'm
fucking
sorry, that's-
happy
I'm
ending.
sorry, that's
This
what
is
you meant.
real shit. All right.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is This
exactly.
is
Yeah,
real
yeah, yeah.
stuff we experienced through her eyes.
It's like
Of like
Dewey-
what being like a complete like she's not consistent here. She doesn't belong here. She's just dropped in here trying to figure shit out, and it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah.
And I love that so much because
Yeah.
not everything works out, and I want to see things not work out.
Yeah, it wasn't set up for like, oh, does the biker alien get a sequel?
I don't give a fuck about him at
like,
all. The whole
he has-
movie.
He has
Right.
kind of a cool scene where like he sees the smoke from like her burning, and so he
Does
knows.
he actually see the smoke? I didn't.
don't care if he does.
Yeah, I just saw him just on the cliffside.
I don't
know, I
basically
guess
survive.
character
He's just
doesn't need to
returning
be
to
in
like
this
I'm
movie.
still a predator type.
I guess
type
in,
shot.
in my mind, I think I don't know, when I watched it, just the way it was edited together, I sort of thought like, oh, he like maybe he saw it and he was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like job done, like I can go back to being like my
He's
own
got to make another.
alien.
He's got to make another ScarJo.
But it's like you said, like I kind of wish
Can
movies just
anyone ever
ended
do
and they were
that,
just
though?
over, and it's nice that this movie is just over after this, and
Yeah.
and now you get to dwell in it for a while, and if you're lucky enough to have friends like I have, you can talk about it on a podcast for the next 2.5 hours.
and then some
Yeah.
idiots can listen to it, and those idiots are you, and we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but we also don't call you idiots. Like we value your support.
Hey, I'm an idiot too.
except for the
so.
people in Chicago, Jane had a vendetta against Chicago.
Man, I
people
really did
time.
last
Yeah.
time. Hey, I love you in the Windy City too. I mean, the
If you're
fucking
listening,
Bears
if not,
stink.
fuck you.
Yeah,
That's what he
exactly.
said. That's what he
Exactly.
said.
All right, like I mean, look, listen here, boys. I mean, fucking subscribe to the channel. Give this fucking podcast a like. All right, we're not fucking around here. Right, you guys know you like it. Let's not
I
fucking
mean,
sit around
we literally,
bullshit.
I mean, we pulled out all the strings to get Calvin on
All
here,
the
a film
strings.
pro, and by pulling out the
No,
strings,
do you even know who this dude is? And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, you're gonna fucking learn, and that's the point here.
and by pulling out the strings, I mean, I texted him and I was like, "Hey, do you want to come over and do this?" And he was like, "Yeah."
yeah,
That was
Yeah.
all the string pulling I needed.
I mean,
Hey,
kind
but
of
really-
assumed that there would be like more like well cooked pizza, but like it was fine.
Dude, come on.
one of
please.
them was a little bit too well cooked.
That
Please
was good.
stop.
But the bottom was still like
Yeah.
it was fine. But the top
Please,
was, yeah.
dude, Doughmaster, please stop. Please
Hey,
stop.
don't
But
worry, I'll
anyways,
bring
if
the
you
pizza
are
next time
listening,
and
hey,
you'll stow me.
guys,
Yeah.
if you are listening, we really appreciate you. I mean, jokes aside, it's very cool. We're trying to have some fun here, talk some bullshit. You guys want to listen? To it?
No, that's
awesome.
not why I'm here. I went to college.
Well, Calvin's trying to like.
Dude, Calvin's trying to make money, man.
Calvin's making money here. All right?
Yeah, that's,
Hey, but I
that's
think-
why I went to
So
film
if you
school.
guys want us to keep Calvin, keep listening. All right.
Yeah. But I think we kind of wrapped up kind of how we feel about this, and
Yeah,
I think so,
I
too.
would like to give kind of like last opinions on this. So I was asked,
So I have recommendations.
Yeah.
too, yeah.
but so I was asked. My girlfriend asked me. She was like, because I told her I watched it, and she's like, "Oh, do you like it? Did you enjoy it?" And I was like, I don't enjoy this movie, and not in the sense that like I don't like get anything out of it. I get a lot of it out of this movie, but like, did I sit down and I was like, "Ah, man, this movie like, I just like feel a certain way about it." I mean, I do feel a certain way about it, but like I don't like enjoy it. I think this is not a movie that you're supposed to sit down and be like, "Wow, I really like this." Like, it's not the same way as like I guess like a mainstream Marvel movie or like, "Oh, I had so much fun."
Yeah,
with this.
it's not fun.
Yeah,
it's,
it's
not,
not
fun.
entertainment
It's
for
not
entertainment's
fun.
sake. It's
It's-
entertainment in a sense of I'm looking at new experiences.
You have
new
to find
perspectives.
your own way to be entertained.
Yeah, and what I would say
that's
is-
why I love this movie.
Well,
and that's
hey,
why I'd recommend this movie to anyone.
this
who wants
is
to
my
watch it.
this is my review of the movie. I would say that this is not. I mean, I don't want to sound bad, but this is not. I don't enjoy watching this, but this is an insanely interesting way to tell a story through film.
Yeah,
And
just through the visual medium
it
alone.
is so different than like most movies are made. It is very low on dialogue. It is very just like kind of you need to understand your character and what they're going through. And it's just a movie that you just have to watch. And if you have your phone out watching this movie, you're not going to get
you're
any
gonna
of
fucking
it.
get it at all.
No,
Put it
it's
away.
not going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just a movie that is just it is. I was interested in it from the moment it started because I was just like visually and the score and just like Scarlett Johansson just like giving out little bits of audio. I was just like right off the bat, it's like I'm very interested. Do I enjoy it? Like probably not. But I don't think enjoying is the same thing as appreciating a good film.
Yeah.
And I don't think I need to like fall in love with this and like be like, oh man, I like this is not a movie that I want to watch all the time. It's because first of all, it's just a lot to like bring in. But
Right.
do I think it's worth watching? Absolutely. But I don't like. I think enjoying, or liking, or loving, or hating is not a way I would describe this movie. I would just describe it as a very interesting take on how do you tell a story through film. And I think, I think McKinnon has like a lot more to say about that.
I actually think that a lot of that resonated with me also because, like I said at the very beginning, viewing this movie was like viewing a painting, and I also am not gonna rewatch this movie frequently, but I think all of us would be totally insane to say that this isn't a work of art. It's very well done. Just
I mean, it's considered one of the best films of the last decade.
absolutely.
I would agree.
I think you
100%.
could, I think you could pause it at any point and take a picture of the screen and put that on your wall. I think every shot is masterfully done.
Okay, McKinn, we don't need to know what kind of smut you're putting on your wall.
I would just pause every Scarlett Johansson scene.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Oh my God, the art.
That's not what I meant.
The art of the body.
I was trying to sound pretentious, but you guys made me sound like a slut instead. But no, I think all of us would be crazy to say that this isn't like a beautifully done movie. Like I said at the beginning, I had a really hard time interpreting a lot of the stuff in this movie, and like I said, a lot of it went over my head. And obviously, this last 2.5 hours where we spent talking about it helped me digest it a lot. I'm sure a lot of people are going to see this and have an easier time digesting it, and some people are going to benefit from bouncing it off a couple people and be like, "Hey, what did you think about this?" And that's what this movie left me with.
Yeah, and I think a quarter of the people are just gonna watch it because of Jaden's plug for Scarlett Johansson's body.
I mean, it is awesome. I mean, my reviews on this movie, straight up super fucking weird, super fucking interesting. Like, I mean, give it a watch if you like puzzles and things like that. If you don't want to sit down and just like have something like mindlessly play, you want to pay attention to it. Like, watch this movie. It's awesome. Also, major boobage, dudes. I mean, if you've been watching
Is that a rating?
Marvel since 2009,
2 boobs out of 10.
I would give it 10 boobs out of 10.
Well, we
boobs.
gave the
12 asses out of 10.
What
as
did
well.
we gave the earlier podcast like how many Sebastian stands out of 10 and how many
Sebastian Stans.
Alright.
so how many Scarlett Johanssons out of 10 would you give
I would
this?
give this 15 out of 10 Scarlett
Okay, there we go.
Johanssons.
I think I gave a Baron Zemo gold star.
Oh,
so-
Baron Zemo got the most praise that he could
Right.
have.
I mean, you think I'm dropping terms that you don't understand? I don't know what the hell you guys are talking about anymore.
Major boobage.
You gotta
dude.
catch up on an earlier podcast.
Yeah, apparently, I'm sorry I haven't stayed up to date with the,
Hey man, like and
It's meta.
subscribe, dude.
Yeah, like and subscribe
Yeah.
Let's
if
get
you
this
thought,
bitch going,
yeah,
boys.
If you thought you didn't like that movie, just wait.
until you get worse.
So
We're
Calvin,
going to talk about mermaid vaginas at some point.
so Calvin, did you have a brief closing little snapshot of the movie?
I mean, I feel like I
feel like
talked
you could
the
talk
most
a lot about
here,
the.
and every one of you has just been like, "Oh my God, that's great, Calvin."
Calvin, you're so fantastic.
We're trying to interpret the movie the best as we can, and obviously we didn't go to school for 4 years, so I also want to
Also,
second-
you recommended this fucking movie. So.
I mean, I honestly just looked at best films for the last 10 years, and that one kept popping up, and I was like, how? I mean, I love Scarlett Johansson, and she is especially in Her. If you've seen
Yeah,
Her,
I was surprised because you texted me and we were like, oh, I think we should watch this, and I was like, oh, I've seen that one, like that's a really good pick, and you're like, oh, you've seen this? I was like, yeah, like
yeah,
I actually saw it. I actually saw it in 2014, right after it came out.
that's crazy.
And back then I was just like, oh man, like weird, but like
dope.
it felt like it was good.
Yeah.
But watching
Yeah.
it a second time, I was like, oh man, okay, actually
Yeah.
really good.
There's so much there. Yeah, but the reason I wanted to start with this film is it's just a perfect example of how
Language
little-
of film.
Language of film. How little dialogue you need to tell an incredible story. You laugh at me like it's stupid, and you're over here like Scottish, but you can't
No, I
understand
just
Scottish.
no, I just love it. That's your term, dude. Do you own that for the rest of the time you're on the podcast?
I mean,
no one
like,
can
that's-
say, no
that's
one's
like
allowed to
what,
say
like-
language of film besides you. You
All right,
own that
well,
now.
I'll let you know if you've used it incorrectly, but otherwise,
I said medium last week, and that's my
Yeah,
term.
awesome,
so
awesome,
shit.
awesome.
He said medium, and I was like, oh yeah, we're a legitimate podcast.
My word is fuck, I believe.
we're still waiting to figure out what Connor's term is. But
Alright.
go ahead, Calvin.
Yeah,
what
go
were you
ahead,
saying about
finish.
But
that?
yeah,
but-
no, I just think it's such a great story that doesn't need to say anything. It's just a beautiful way, and this is the way I think a film entirely is. It's an expression of human experience, and this is this is a perfect example of the medium taking a specific perspective and using only images to convey what the subject is thinking and what the subject is feeling and how to make a story out of that.
Okay,
It's so
so-
unusual.
Yeah, we don't even
It's
need to
there
hear.
to be there.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing to me. Is it's not here to lead to other things or do anything like that. It's there to for you experience this weird. I mean, it's so fucking weird, dudes. But it's there
You're
for you
welcome.
to experience that, and it's awesome. And like, if you love weird shit, fucking watch this movie, man.
It's like I've been saying, show, don't tell.
Exactly.
And if you show your audience stuff, it leaves up to interpretation, and that is huge.
Okay, you can only have one catchphrase, McKinnon. So that's. I don't know how I feel about that. You can have medium and not shown.
Dude,
or
It's
show
my
and tell.
show.
It is. It
sorry.
is McKinnon show.
You're right. I'm just
I
yes.
will say you're a guest, dude. McKinnon can say whatever he wants. We can limit you, but McKinnon can edit you out completely.
Oh my god, the power dynamics are
But
shifting
no, but
so
like
quickly.
I just totally agree. This movie is just it's just something that you need to watch because you want to just have a different experience on how a story is told. And I think that's like if you want to really break it down and describe just like an easy way to recommend this movie, I think it's a great way to kind of have film tell you a story that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just love that. And I think for that, I think we're on to the next part of the episode. All right, and on that note, I think we're gonna recommend things that we've been listening to, watching, reading, whatever we've been doing lately. And it's terms of reading, I just finished a book. It was called Void Star. It was written by Zachary Mason, and it is really heavy on like AI and technology, and it's a lot of computers involved. And I think kind of the interesting thing about reading a book is you kind of put your own aesthetic on how it looks, like in your mind's eye. So to me, this book really felt like a Ghost in the Shell type thing. It was very futuristic. It was you know when like Ghost in the Shell they have like a lot of implants and everyone's like really enhanced. This was kind of like drawn back on that. Like only a few people have implants and they can kind of modify technology that way. But the book is very technical, and I think part of that comes from the writer Zachary Mason. He has like degrees in computer science and like AI, and has 100 PhDs. You know, he's a very smart guy. But this book kind of it like sets you like right in the middle of a story. Like they sort of talk about how like Los Angeles is kind of like a lawless town, and like the police pulled out, and like you need passports to go between states and stuff like that. And so it kind of sets you in the middle of a story, and I think that is not to the benefit of the book. And it's fine, but there are 3 point of view characters in this book. One is really cool, one is pretty cool, and one is just awful to listen to. His like chapters like drag a lot. But I want to say like the last quarter of the book like picks up a ton, and it's like really fun to listen to. So like I work a overnight job, and I listen to these on like audiobooks. So like that's why I keep saying I listened and I didn't read. But it's a fine book. I think it's worth listening to if you really like kind of like the technical aspects of like how computer and AI might work in the future. It's like definitely worth a listen, worth a read. It's just very much you just get dropped in this story, and like if you don't really have any clue what's going on, it's like kind of a tough thing to listen to. But I mean, I think it's a fine book. I'm really looking forward to the next one I want to read. It's by Andy Weir. It's his Mission Hail Mary. He's the same writer who did Artemis, and his biggest one is The Martian, which is my favorite book I've ever read.
Great movie too.
Yeah, so get ready to listen to that. Like I'm gonna read that book in like no time. I'm so ready to get through that book. I love the way he writes, but I guess if I had to give like an interview on Void Star, it was like okay.
Review, not interview.
Review. Yeah, it was okay.
How many Scarlett Johanssons?
Man.
I mean, one
0 to
just
10 ScarJo.
One Scarlett Johansson means it's
a
fine
lot.
as hell.
It's awesome.
Oh man, it's not like an eighth of a ScarJo then. I guess.
Oh man,
It's not even one Scarlet. It's fine. It's a fine book. It's very technical, and it's a book that like if you really want to like really get into, you have to read it like a second, third
So
time.
it's maybe for like a certain type of audience.
It was just so I don't think like our reviews of what we're watching lately should be about stuff that we love. I think it should also be like, hey, maybe this like isn't great. And,
of course we
So-
can't just plug things that we love.
Yeah.
We gotta understand.
Just
things
this
that
is
we
what
like.
I had done
I
lately.
don't know. I
and-
feel like that's what a plug is. Like you should do this thing.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
not a plug as much as it's a quick review of what I'm going over.
Right.
But yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a fine book. It's whatever. But I'm
All right.
done. I'm done with that now. So,
I want to go ahead and do some. I'm gonna do two quick plugs here. Speaking of books, I've been reading Caging Skies. I'm almost done with it. If you've seen the movie Jojo Rabbit, it's one of my favorite movies I've ever seen in my life. The book is great. Caging Skies is based off. Jojo Rabbit is based off of Caging Skies, and it's a great book. It's very different from the movie, but it's awesome. Quick plug on that. If you like to read, you like that movie, get after it. Second plug, huge fan of family animated movies. I know they're cheesy and stupid. You can judge me whatever. The Mitchells vs. Machines on Netflix is tear-jerking. It is loving. It is family-oriented, and it is great. And I don't give a shit if people don't like that I say that shit. It's awesome. It's a good movie. It's fun for everyone. Made me cry. The pug's awesome. So, those are my plugs.
I don't have any shows or movies I'm going through on Netflix or Hulu right now. Because of the nature of my job, I also listen to a lot of audiobooks. And right now I'm listening to the Halo novels from the video games Halo. And I'm on book 6. It's a large series, lots of pretty dense military jargon. It's not going to be for everyone, and sometimes I kind of want to turn it off, but I'm pushing through because a lot of the books are made by different writers, and I think that some of the books down the line are going to benefit from me listening to these previous books, and they're going to have a different writing style that's going to resonate with me a lot more. So I'm listening to those right now. I'm looking forward to books 7, 8, and 9, and I'm on book 6. So I'm looking forward to that light at the end of the tunnel. And these are pretty good so far. They're just dense, very, very militaristic, and not quite for everyone.
And honestly, I
Have
did
you
not
gotten
know
to-
that there was Halo books, and you've intrigued me a little bit, Skeeto.
yeah,
Just
have
with
you
your
gotten
review
to
there.
any of the Fall of Reach books yet?
Yeah, so The Fall of Reach is the title of the very first book. It's about the Fall of Reach.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. If you play the games, you can get the book background. It's interesting because a lot of the books have, Master Chief. So far, I'm only on the 6th book, and so far I've got a little bit about Master Chief, and he's a very if I could be brief about the book and give my little bits of review of it, the Master Chief is a very boring character. They don't do a lot with him. He's not the most in-depth character. It's mostly the most interesting parts to me are the aliens and how some of the aliens have dynamics with each other. Like one of the books has a story between a grunt and one of the engineers, and it's a far more interesting story to me than when it cuts back to the Master Chief, and like his parts of the book are far less boring to me than the Covenant and their relations to each other, because the Covenant is obviously made up of these different branches of aliens, and they have far more intriguing interactions than Master Chief.
And that was not a lead-in question. I actually didn't realize that it started with Reach. One of my favorite Halo games is the Reach.
It's really
video
good.
Game.
Yeah,
And-
no,
and
that's a
so
great
I
one.
was just wondering how that fell in, and as far as how it was aligned with like the book series. So that's cool that it starts that way.
Yeah, totally. And the books don't go in order because the Fall of Reach, it's not the first game. I think it's like the third or fourth game in the series. It's after Halo 2.
Yeah, it's after Halo 3 for
but
sure.
it's the first book. It's the first book, and chronologically, it's not the first book. It's just the first one written in the series. So the first book chronologically in the series, I think, is like book 5. It's called Contact Harvest, and it's about the aliens having first contact with the humans, and it's actually fascinating. So yeah, it's a good read.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm excited to like hear more about it and check it out myself. And I think we'll check out what Calvin has.
Yeah, I watch shit. So if I'm gonna watch something for entertainment's sake, it's gonna be comedy. So I finally got around to watching What We Do in the Shadows, the film. By
I thought you were talking about the show. Both are awesome.
I
Oh
want to
my
watch
God.
the show, but it's not free to stream anywhere. Like
Hulu, it's free stream.
no, it's not. Well,
It
not
is.
not.
I-
I just watched that. I just looked at.
No, I literally watched it.
I
all the
watched
time
it on Hulu
Yeah.
like
What the
Hannah and I watched
Just
it on
watch
Hulu
his
like 2
lying
weeks
to
ago.
me?
Yeah.
It is awesome.
But no, but I want to.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
want to hear what you think about this movie because I love this
Okay,
movie.
so
Love.
comedy is so easy for me. to suspend my disbelief for. Like the thing is comedy is generally for comedy's sake. There's some subtext we're trying to poke fun of certain political ideals and make these ideas palpable. But that's not really the point of this film. This film is just like it's understated. It's very New Zealand in terms of its humor and just the dryness. Obviously, a fan
Taika
of-
Waititi is one of the
Taika
main characters in
Waititi.
it.
Well, it was
One of
written
my
and
favorite
directed
guys.
by Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement of Flight
Who
of
is
the Conchords.
Flight of the Conchords,
I-
yeah.
And I love Jermaine. I just really like it's business time, and so I just love that movie, and I would love to talk about like the function of humor, as a construct in general. Like I know,
Can
like
you just talk about how you like something every
I
once
just
in a
I
while?
just realized I heard
Like,
myself.
goddamn,
and I
all
was
of us
like,
are just talking about like, man, this is just a fun thing, and you're like, I
What do
really,
you mean? You're
I'd-
You've just a fun thing. You're like, so I just hated this book, but I feel like that's like why we're just plugging.
Hey, Calvin's
It's
doing
like-
his thing. You let Calvin do his thing. Go ahead, Calvin.
I've finished this glass of brandy, so now I'm just gonna ranting mode. But yeah, no. Really glad I got around to watching that because it's just it's really funny and
I love
the
I love
tone
all
of
the
it.
little things in it. It's like they're trying to get into like a nightclub.
Yeah, can you just
Can you
invite us in?
It's like, cause like, yeah, I don't know. Traditionally, like vampires can't just enter a building. Like they
If
have
you
to be
like
invited
The
in.
Office and you like vampires,
It's so
watch
good. Like, it's
the
just like
movie
yeah,
and
like kind of
show.
like a faux documentary. It's so funny. I totally agree with Calvin. This is an
Yeah.
absolute watch. It's
yeah,
so funny.
Of all the plugs, I'm pretty sure I just gave everyone the most palpable.
Definitely
You
the
wouldn't
most
have thought-
entertaining,
yeah,
for
you,
sure,
You
yeah.
wouldn't have thought coming from me, but here I am.
yeah,
just
he did get the best one.
Yeah, we're all kind of gave
Unless
Lauren-
you're-
I was
into
gonna
the
say
Halo
Jubilee's
novels.
Legacy almost, but that show kind of fucking stinks.
I wouldn't say that vampires are more like palpable than Halo.
I believe they are. They've been around for way
I
longer.
mean,
than
they're
Master
definitely
Chief.
more fetishized. So fuck you.
Twilight, dude.
All right, then on that note, I think we've reached the end of the podcast.
I would
And-
fuck a vampire before an alien.
all right, on that note, we definitely end the podcast.
I
All
mean,
right,
yeah. I mean, did you? I mean, you didn't watch Under the Skin?
all right.
Ah, shit! I would
right.
fuck an alien first.
All right. So that's the end of our show. Hope you guys enjoyed our review of Under the Skin and our interview with Calvin, and just having him on in general, just to like
I
kind of break down a lot of.
I'm just tickled that you guys invited me on here.
Oh, we
It's
love
just,
you,
like,
Cal.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we did the-
It's like I told my friends, I was like, this is the first time anyone's ever actually asked my opinion on movies, so I can't pass this up.
No,
So
we
I'm
We
sorry, I
want to
have to
hear. We
leave
want to
early.
hear. People want to hear.
Jade and I recorded the first show, and right after we had gotten like 10 minutes, and we were like, we got to have Calvin on here.
Yeah.
Like we got to have him
Yeah,
on here.
That's the first time anyone's ever said that sentence.
Aw,
Yeah.
we love you, Cal.
So yeah.
I'm sure some lucky lady has said like, I got to have Calvin on here.
Sure, big
Well, I'm
old
getting
fucking
divorced, so I
dick.
don't think that's true.
hey, any ladies out there? Calvin's got a huge Johnson. Right?
no.
Massive.
Okay,
I'm not,
we're-
even, like, I'm not here spreading misinformation. Like, it's not like fake news.
I am. I'm out here spreading misinformation. I don't care.
Okay, we're
Ladies,
getting
get
more
at
off
it.
the rails than I want to be, and so on that note, I think we want to thank you for a good
Brandy.
a
Love
good
you
podcast,
guys.
and thank you for listening. This is the end of Now This Is Podcasting.
Yee
And
yee.
thank you for listening.